If people are not very experienced, they should allow to share the secrets of successful life. This will be real evil. His three main principles to live: not changing their convictions, do not neglect efforts to improve their charm, and do not allow anyone to decide their fate. This is exactly what the main character strives for. He wants to live by his beliefs and do whatever he wants. That's his villain's way. The action takes place at the crossroads of a noisy city. In the middle of the road lies a bloody body. People crowd around it and say that the man was hit by cars. He saved the girl. Someone shouts that they called an ambulance as soon as possible. It seems that the heroine, who was saved, was not hurt. One of the passers-by turns to her and asks, despite the fact that he saved her, he does not know who this person is. They talk to her in a rude manner. Safe here? Glad she's okay. The girl runs away in horror and screams that she doesn't know this man. The hero scolds himself for playing the role of a good guy all his life. And now he got what he deserved for it. He thinks he has lived a very bad life. The hero comes to his senses. The young man looks around, realizing that this was a memory of his past life. As a young man, he died protecting his lover who was cheating on him. Now he is reincarnated in a fantasy world as Ogre Verret, the son of Duke Verret, an unprincipled nobleman. The young man understands that you mean he is an evil aristocrat. Before he died, he realized that he was too kind. The maids come into the dining room and bring food. They ask if the gentleman would like more. The protagonist understands that being a good person is bad. He does not want to experience it anymore. Somehow he was reborn as the son of a cruel nobleman. The young man decides to do it. In this life, he will do whatever he wants. He will find beautiful warrior girls and make them his servants. He decides that he will follow his desires. The young man is 15 years old, and so a man appeared who strives to become absolute evil. The protagonist enters the dining room and apologizes to his father for keeping him waiting. The man is happy to see his son and invites him to sit down. He says that every day the young man studies hard and trains tirelessly. It seems that he knows very well, is aware of his role as the heir of the Verret family, one of the 4 great families. The young man replies that this is indeed the case. I gave his father to a woman mired in corruption. He operates from behind the scenes to catch political opponents off guard. The man is a real villain and wants to become the main character. He says that he intends to follow in his father's footsteps and do his job well. The man replies that he only counts on his son. By the way, starting next year, he will become a full-fledged successor. The man asks if his son is entering the Magic Academy. He asks what the protagonist is going to do with his magic. The young man says that this technology is one of a kind and should not be shown to everyone. The head of the family laughs and says that his son is truly right. The father of the main character says that he also needs someone to look after him in the dorm. He instructs his son to choose this person himself. The protagonist asks if his father is sure of his decision. He says that, of course, finding talent is also part of the training, but he can simply buy a servant if he wants. The protagonist realizes that this is the moment he has been waiting for so long. He decides to take advantage of this opportunity to get an excellent subordinate to become an exemplary villain. The young man thinks that this is not enough. He will dare to subjugate a person with a sense of justice and make him an accomplice to his crimes. This is what real evil is, in his opinion. He almost starts jumping on the table with delight. Suddenly remembering where he is, the young man bows and says he will go. His father asks him to be careful. The protagonist already has one such person in mind, so he is ready to act. Today, he will get his first accomplice. The action takes place in the outskirts of the royal capital city. The crowd watches the fight closely. From it come shouts that push for murder. This is the underground arena. There is a battle between several people. 2 men cannot defeat a warrior girl. They promise to finish her off, but they can't do anything. They promise that she will definitely die today. One of the men runs up to her to attack, shouting that her winning streak is over. With a deft movement, the girl parries his blow. She uses the mad sword swing technique. She torments her opponent and says that he is being too noisy. The heroines advise him to at least leave silently. The girl deals with the enemy. In the corridor, she is overtaken by a man. He addresses her by name. He calls Chris to come with him and says that she has a guest. The girl asks in surprise who he is talking about. The man apologizes to the main character for the wait and says that he brought the heroine as he asked. The young man thanks the assistant. The girl asks the man who this man is. He asks her to watch her language and says that for her information, this young man. The man does not have time to finish speaking, and the young man interrupts him. He says that it is nothing to worry about. The main character turns to the manager and asks to leave them alone with the girl. The man agrees to his request and leaves. He says that he will make sure that no one disturbs them. Passing by the heroine, he asks her to obey Mr. Org. The protagonist sighs. He looks at the girl and says that it seems that he was slightly misunderstood. He will bother Togo in order to buy himself a woman. He turns to Chris Lagunica and greets the former captain of the Holy Knights. The girl is amazed that he knows her name. She asks how he knows her name. The girl looks closely at her interlocutor and notices a dagger with the Verret family coat of arms on his belt. The heroine understands that he is a nobleman. The protagonist's family was involved in foreign affairs and intelligence. The protagonist asks the girl not to look at him like that, although he can understand her feelings. He knows that nobles like him have exiled her for a crime she did not commit. The heroine admits with annoyance that this is true. She says she did it for justice. Illegal trade was on the rise at the time, and she was able to find a supplier base. The girl recalls those terrible days, and it turned out that these people were being protected by aristocrats. Then she turned to His Majesty the King and reported that, as it turned out, the Lynx had organized the trade 100-fold. She asked the ruler to punish them. But the aristocrats drew the king's attention to themselves and asked him not to believe what this girl was saying. They convinced the king that it was a commoner who fancied herself a knight in shining armor, and they provided false evidence that her accusations were lies. The girl swore that it was slander and that she had not betrayed the kingdoms. The nobles got rid of all evidence and made her out to be a criminal. They took everything from her, including the title of Holy Knight. After such a severe shock, the girl could not control herself. She grabbed the main character by the chest and began to interrogate him about what he wanted from her. In anger, she screamed that because of them, she was forced to swing her blade of justice in an arena filled with evil. The young man remained calm. He says in a cold voice that this is an incredible disappointment for him and asks where the pride of a holy knight has gone. The girl, amazed, lets him go and says that she is simply no longer a holy knight. The protagonist says that he liked what a holy knight she was, he respected her. The young man notices that she always supported her comrades and was never afraid of evil. He says that in the fight for justice, the heroine shone brighter than anyone else. The girl asks the young man to stop. She says that there is no need for these words. Now she is the same as them. They earn their living by violence. She has no way back. She says that the man is dead. The holy knight Chris Lagunica is already dead. She says that it is so. She will not be able to return to her previous life. The protagonist asks, since she is dead, why not start over? He says that next to him she will be able to shine again. The young man asks to follow him. He takes her hand. The girl blushes. The protagonist vows to create a place where her justice can shine again. He asks what her answer is. The heroine kneels and agrees. She vows to be his sword forever. The young man feels that winning her trust was as easy as pie. He mentally addresses her and asks her not to cry from tenderness. He is simply following his principles of evil. The main character even hung a piece of paper with these principles in his room. It was a perfect one-man show to make her his servant for life. The young man says that if she agrees, she can go home right now. He wants to introduce her to his father. The girl agrees. The main character says that the girl's name has gotten a bad name and suggests that Chris change it. He asks what she thinks about changing the letter K to A. The young man says that Alice sounds much more feminine. The girl cries and asks if he is really ready to give her such a wonderful name. She admits that she is very touched. The girl asks the protagonist for permission to enter the arena one last time. The young man allows it and asks why she needs it. The heroine says that she just needs to get ready to leave. The young man walks down the hallway and thinks that she probably wants to take her things. He thinks that a weapon is never too much, in which you understand that from now on any blade will serve the girl evil and injustice. The hero decides that he and Alice will take the first step on the path of evil together. Someone calls his name. The young man sees a pile of bodies in front of him. The pile is formed right in the middle of the arena. At the very top stands Alice, saying that she is now ready. The protagonist is amazed that she left for a short time to arrange a massacre. He definitely made a good step towards his goal by getting such a powerful pawn. The girl says that she slaughtered all the bad guys to show the main character her justice. She confesses that she will serve the protagonist until the end of her days. The young man looks at her in amazement and does not understand that his first step on the path of evil turned out to be too steep. The action takes place in the Magic Academy, the best school of magic for nobles in the country. This is a very suitable place to lay the foundation for a wonderful future. Someone calls the protagonist. The young man has already made a move, taking such a wonderful pawn as Alice into his hands. The girl says that the school uniform suits the young man very well, and she will also try to be a worthy assistant. The main character thanks her. Everyone around them starts whispering about the young man's origins. An unknown lady approaches them and says that, as she thought, the main character is already in the spotlight. The young man understands that there is one problem here. Everyone around knows that he is the son of a corrupt lord. People ask why this loser entered the academy. Hearing this, Alisu approaches the people and asks if they are ready to die. It is quite dangerous to get involved with this maid. The protagonist asks her to stop. He says that Yu family has become famous as a mouth of villains, and he, of course, expected something like this. But it confuses him very much. Now that he has gained fighting power, his next step is to get new subordinates for the harem. However, the current situation is not particularly conducive to this. A girl approaches the main character and is surprised. She says that it is really him. The beauty bows her head, says that they have not seen each other for a long time. She asks if he remembers her. Alice tries to understand who was in front of her. The young man remembers the girl. This is Karen Rebecca. She is the only daughter of one of the 4 great families and his ex-fiancé. The protagonist says that they haven't seen each other for a long time and remember that the last time they saw each other was when they were 5 years old. The girl is amazed that the young man remembers this. Iwer answers that, of course, he remembers how he gave her this hairpin. The heroine says that she still keeps it. The young man introduces her to Alice. The girl asks if she is his ex-fiancé. The young man replies that yes, they broke off their engagement because of some problems on his part. The heroine is amazed that her master is not perfect. The young man says that magic is the most powerful thing in this world. He asks if she understands this. The girl says that of course she does, but he has no magical abilities. That is, he does not know how to cast spells at all. The protagonist says that for a nobleman, the inability to do magic is a fatal flaw. He says that they had no choice, and the bride's family did not like him. The girl says that this is not true. In fact, the protagonist has always been something special for her. Suddenly, she turns away and asks to forget about this conversation. They are going to be late for the ceremony. The protagonist is pleased to see at least someone familiar. He asks himself, why did she put on a male uniform? But there are probably reasons for that. During the ceremony, the rector congratulates all the new students. Now they can take their luggage and go to their rooms. Everyone around is whispering and discussing the fact that the protagonist has no talent for magic, even though he is a nobleman. The protagonist thinks how funny it is that they all think that. Alice realizes that something bad was said behind her back. About the master. The young man restores her, says that it is not necessary. She says that it is so offensive, they have no idea what a wonderful person he is. The main character turns to her, says that she is absolutely right, because they are ordinary cabbage rolls. He understands that she wants to dispel their ignorance, but soon they will look at him with envy. After all, he who laughs last, laughs best. The girl admires him. It's time to move on. We need to explore the campus. The building is quite spacious inside. No wonder this place is considered the best academy in the kingdom. The main character has already decided on his next goal, but it is not so easy to find her in such a big place. The young man notices the teenagers laughing. He asks them to stop. It seems to him that some nobodies are gathered there. The students insult the girl and tell her not to think that she can communicate with them as an equal. They discuss her eyes, calling them disgusting, and demand that she not look at them. The heroine apologizes. The boys are not far behind her. Alice is going to deal with these scum. However, the main character gets ahead of her. He apologizes to Alice and says that this is exactly the girl he was looking for. The young man knows that this is why he must show himself in all his glory. He deals with the hooligans and those who offend the heroine, and the leader curses and asks the young man if he knows who he is dealing with. The protagonist calls him by name. This is the second son of Count Bombold. He says that it seems that the young man is very sensitive about his status. The young man asks permission to introduce himself. He asks if he has any complaints. Hearing the name of the main character, the Count's son runs away but shouts that he will remember this. Alice admires her master. She says she didn't know he was so good at martial arts. The young man says there's nothing special about it. He turns to the girl and asks if she can stand up. He really liked her form, so he decided to take her under his control. The girl thanks the protagonist for his help. She apologizes for not introducing herself. Her name is Mishiro Rice. The protagonist notices the unbridled strength and feels a little sorry for the buttons on the girl's clothes. How he pulls himself together and decides that he must not forget that he must behave like a gentleman. He draws the girl's attention to the fact that her skirt is dirty and hands her some napkins. The heroine is overjoyed that he shared his handkerchief with her. She doesn't believe that he would make such a gesture for someone like her. The girl promises to give him the scarf as soon as she washes it. The young man says it's nothing. The girl runs away and says she'll see him at the entrance banquet. The protagonist understands that everything is going according to his plan. Judging by the expression on her face, her sympathy for him has increased dramatically. As these people said, she is the only commoner in the academy. And since he is the only noble who treated her well, it is only a matter of time before she ends up in his hands. The protagonist turns to Alessia, saying that it is time for them to get ready as well. The girl admires her master. The protagonist is surprised and asks himself, will she always react like this? The heroes arrive at the venue of a banquet for new students. The young man thinks that the atmosphere here is quite impressive. Alice offers him a drink. The main character's attention is drawn to the crowd. A crowd has formed around the crown prince of Arnealandiasm. The protagonist says that he is currently Karen's fiancé. Alice is surprised that after their engagement was broken off, the girl has a new fiancé. The protagonist says that there is nothing to be done about it because he does not have the gift of magic. Alice asks why in this case the prince of these girls' circle seems to her to be a nasty guy. The protagonist asks why she is so angry. The prince approaches Alice, asking if she needs anything from him. The girl assumes that this guy sensed her murderous intent. The protagonist apologizes to His Highness and says that she is with him. The prince turns to him and says that he has heard about the main character, a swindler with no magical abilities. Alice wants to stand up for her master, but he asks her not to interfere. The protagonist apologizes for not introducing himself right away and says his name. He is honored that His Highness has heard of him. The prince says that this is certainly true because he is famous. Suddenly, Karen runs up to the heroes. She turns to her fiancé and asks what he is doing here. He asks if everything is okay with her. The girl freezes. She turns away, says no. This is the crown prince, and he is the current groom, and Alice understands where this awkwardness comes from. The prince says that it is time for him to go, and warns the protagonist that he will be disgraced due to his lack of magical abilities. He can't wait to see it. Mom calls Karen to follow her. The young man is almost crying. Alice understands that the girl is in such a position that she cannot even apologize. It must be upsetting. The young man says that everything is fine. He understands perfectly well what the girl is thinking. After these words, the heroine freezes and stops. Alice says that the main character is just a wonderful person. Those fools laughed at the fact that he has no magical abilities. But for him it does not matter. The master is much higher than all this. The main character thanks her for her kind words. He chuckles and says that the situation turned out to be funny. He says that everyone present does not understand what a mistake they are making. For a moment, the girl thought that a strange aura was leaving the gentleman. Maybe she was just tired. A man comes up with the main character and says that he has a letter for him. The young man grabs it from his hands. It's a letter from a commoner. She's addressing a gentleman and saying that she'd like to thank him for his help, and she also has something she needs to tell him. She asks if he could please come to the backyard tomorrow morning before first period. The protagonist assumes that it's a love letter. The girl turns to the main character, says that she is very glad that she really came here. She thanks him for his help yesterday. The heroine tries to confess her feelings to the young man. The young man imagines how she will approach him with her face. He asks her if it's too fast, but it was just a dream. Alice runs into the room and asks what's wrong. Did someone attack them? Alice's room is next to the protagonist's personal room. The young man understands that this dream could soon become reality. He didn't expect the girl to send him a love letter right after they met. Why did he think she wasn't the type to take the initiative? The protagonist fantasizes about what if he made her fall in love with him on the first day of school. Alice admires how beautiful her master is in the mirror's reflection. The protagonist comes to the school's backyard and apologizes to the girl for keeping him waiting for so long. She sighs languidly. The heroine says that she is very glad that the protagonist came. She thanks him for his help yesterday. She addresses the main character, just as in the dream. The young man mentally asks her not to be shy about expressing her feelings. The girl says that he really needs to stay away from him. The young man is surprised. The girl hands him a handkerchief and says that Vaz is returning it. The protagonist says that yesterday she looked happy. The commoner says that it is not true and that he imagined it. The main character does not understand what is happening. He asks you, "What the hell?" He gave her a handkerchief at that moment. It was a gentlemanly act. What does all this mean? The protagonist assumes that she is one of those hooligans, which means that yesterday, by beating them up, he achieved the opposite effect. To her, he seemed like an oddball and not a gentleman. The whole situation was a misunderstanding. The protagonist understands that there is a misunderstanding between them. He sighs and says that these women will drive him crazy. He does not blame her. Alice confirms that the girl was rash. Meanwhile, the heroine hides behind a column and begs the young man to forgive her. The action moves to the terrace of a cafe. The protagonist drinks tea and thinks about what happened. He doesn't know how to fix it, or if it's even possible. Alice says it's very strange. But she didn't think Rice would approach him like that. She asks the protagonist if he finds it unusual. She means her words. The young man asks what Alice is talking about. The girl says that if she is friends with them, it would be strange to thank him yesterday for picking up the deal in their punches. Such a change in behavior requires a good reason. The protagonist decides that she is right. However, the young man thinks that now was not the time for action. He will simply watch her from the side. The girl remembers that usually the gentleman is much more active. She asks you, does he really want to see what she can do? She decides that she must definitely find a clue for him. She decides that she will now follow the object of the protagonist's affection. The commoner immediately catches her eye. The action takes place in an abandoned building of a magic academy. Inside, laughter and conversations are heard from the main character's face. The gang leader says that he finally fell for this little trick. His comrade asks what else can you expect from a man who can't use magic. Ray says they made her say those words. The bully says that's right, and it worked. The girl asks why they're doing this. The boy asks if she's really going to cry again. It's simple. He enjoys the look of disappointment on the protagonist's face. He turns to the girl and tells her to call him again. The heroine is amazed. The bully says that this time they will use magic to beat him. No matter how strong he is physically, he will not be able to resist magic. The girl wants to refuse and says that she cannot do such a thing. She says that they promised that they would not touch him if she said these words. If the rumors about the protagonist not having magical abilities were true, no matter how good he was at hand-to-hand combat, if he attracted the attention of these people, he would never be left alone. At least, she did everything they said to ensure that the master would not be in danger. But they would never keep their word to a commoner like her. Ordinary people, nothing to the nobles. But this man is different. The girl remembers how he handed her a handkerchief and asked if she could stand up. The heroine decides that she will never betray him again and screams that she will not do it. This time she will protect the master. The bully says she is too impudent to be a commoner. He grabs her by the clothes and rips her into her school uniform. He demands that the girl show him something shameful. Rice begs him not to do it. Suddenly, the door to the temple where the hooligans are located opens. The main character and his assistant Alice stand on the threshold. The main character praises the girl for her words. He says that now no one will lay a finger on her. The bully asks why the main characters are here, although no, he doesn't care. He asks why the young man came here. Didn't the girl turn him down? The young man asked, did they really think he would fall for this cheap show? The hooligan understands that they have been found out. But you have the look of disappointment on his face. He would have made a good actor. A few minutes ago, the main character sighed and repeated that this was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe it was a mistake to try to look tough. Should he change his approach? Alice says they are in trouble and he needs to see what she captured with her magic camera. The protagonist carefully watches the video where the girl discusses hooligans what told him. It turns out that Alice was right and Rice was forced to say these words. Yesterday she showed her true feelings. Alice says that the girl is in trouble and needs help. The protagonist's broken heart was successfully restored. The bully asks what his comrades need magic for. He uses the spirit of flame technique to devour all of his enemies. Alice wants to protect the protagonist from this force. The bully uses the 12 fire arrows technique. He is defeated. The main character reflects his attack and says something like that. The young man asks how he could not be hit. The enemy has no ability for magic. He must have cheated somehow. The hero says that everything is correct. He does not have the gift to use magic. The bully wants to answer him with another portion of fire arrows. The protagonist absorbs his attack again. He calms the magic. All he has to do is erase the magic at its source. The boys don't understand why this is happening. The protagonist says he's at a dead end. He promises it will hurt, but he doesn't use the trash technique quickly. The protagonist punishes his opponent and says that he is not worth it. The girl asks herself what it was. The enemy's magic disappeared. As the protagonist says, the delete excludes magic in limited conditions. It is his development. But he asks if she is injured. The girl asks him for forgiveness for the terrible things she said to him. The main character says that you are not forgivable. She will be punished. He says he wants her to keep it a secret, no more tears. No matter what they're called, don't care. He asks her to follow him. This will be her punishment. The girl throws herself into his arms and says that she is ready for this. The main character believes that he is one step closer to creating a harem. His path to dominance begins here. Someone watches them from the window and asks if these are new students. The girl believes that this year promises to be interesting. After this incident, Rurik was expelled from the academy along with his friends. From now on, the main character will not be associated with the perverted. Now you can focus on your normal morning activities. Alice says that the main character is in his repertoire. She thought that all nobles focused on magic and did not do sports on the Master Special. This is just an assumption. But in this world, most nobles have magical abilities. He moved from another world and he does not have them. Is it because he received a stronger body as if as compensation? If so, then we'll have to work even harder. Race wishes everyone a good morning. The protagonist says that he always dreamed of having a sweet childhood friend. To create this image, he forbade her from all honorifics. As expected, he is a genius. The protagonist says that now that the girl has arrived, Alice must look after her because she cannot be left alone after what happened. The heroine asks if he is going with them. The young man replies that someone called him, and besides, he is sweating heavily. The girls say goodbye to the gentleman. The action takes place in the faculty building on the top floor. The woman says that the protagonist is just in time and thanks him for coming so early. The protagonist turns to the dean and says that this is nonsense. There is no person in this world who has not heard of the thunderous Florna. She is the heroine of many battles. Even now, when she has retired from business and taken over the post of dean, she still radiates strength. The woman asks him to relax and says that she just wanted to thank him. The hero asks for what? She says that for helping Mashiro Rice. The protagonist is surprised that the dean would thank an ordinary student for saving a commoner. The woman says that he probably also noticed that a person can only receive one magical ability at birth, but sometimes children with several abilities appear. The girl is a multimage and has control over both wind and ice. As the heir of the family, he immediately noticed her potential and decided to look after her. In fact, this is the first time the protagonist hears about this. How could he let such an important detail slip? The woman says that otherwise her talent would have been nipped in the bud. She thanks the protagonist on behalf of the academy. The dean says that the class is about to start. He can't be late. But protagonist believes that he is on the right track, but does not understand why he is thanked for it. He asks you why this is happening, because in reality he should be the villain. The dean thinks about the main character. She says he went where he shouldn't have. She can't believe he took the girl she wanted to use in his experiments. It is also known who his maid really is. Somehow this young man got a monster who rose to the rank of commander of the Holy Knights with only fencing, and also a multi-mage's girlfriend. But that's not all. If the bully's words are to be believed, his magic has cancelled his magic. The dean thinks that this is stupid and simply can't be. She doesn't understand his true intentions. But this could become an obstacle to her long-time dream. She turns to her assistant and asks if she heard. The girl asks her not to worry and says that she can entrust the surveillance of the main character to her. The teacher tells you to mind your own business and promises to start the lesson soon. Rice and Alice notice that the gentleman is late. Alice has a bad feeling. The protagonist returns. He understands that calling him to his office to thank him sounds very strange. He remembers the words of the dean and the abilities of his new girlfriend. The girl asks him if everything is okay. The main character grabs her hand and leads her out of the office. He invites her to go for a walk, says that he wants to check something. He asks Alice to stay here. The girl asks what kind of big building is this. The protagonist says it's a training hall. He asks his friend if it's true that she has several magics. He'd like to see it. The heroine agrees to show. She says that now the main character will see how cool she is. Some say that first-year students are not allowed to enter the gym without an escort. A girl approaches them and introduces herself as the president of the student council of the Magic Academy. The protagonist recognizes her as the dean's top student due to her exceptional talent and appearance. She received the nickname God's favorite child and became famous outside the academy. In the photo, she made a different impression on him. The girl says that she feels embarrassed when they stare at her like that. The protagonist says that he just won't be able to hold on and apologizes to her. The heroine stretches his lips into a smile and says that he should smile when he says such things. When she asks what the heroes do here during classes, the young man said that the lecture was too boring, so he decided not to practice on his own. The girl says that in that case we can try a lecture on skills. The protagonist understands that getting a master class from someone is not a rare opportunity that you can't buy for any money. This can be very useful for developing the technique of calming magic. The protagonist agrees. The girl laughs and says that she didn't promise that it would be free. She says that they will both join the student council. The main character understands what the catch is. It looks strange. First the Thunder Florna, now her student. The fact that he met them on the same day could be a coincidence. It turns out you're trapped, set by the teacher and student. The hero decides that this was a stupid idea. Does the deacon really think that she can appease him? The protagonist decides that he will manage somehow because he does not intend to follow her. The girl asks if this is his answer. The young man silently stared at her. Your hero friend runs away from Alice. He completely forgot about her. She asks why she left her alone. The young man apologizes, says it was an impulsive impulse. He needed to check something. The dean's student says that she understood everything and will wait for them at any time. The main character follows her with his eyes. The student realizes that she has failed. She thought that this was the most effective way to fool a man. But increasing the forms is useless when he is surrounded by such people. He outplayed her today, but she will definitely catch him next time. The protagonist is surprised that she backed down so easily. The girl asks the protagonist what he meant when he said he had an impulsive impulse. The boy says that Die Cover told him that their friend has some magical abilities, but he wanted to ask her to show them to him. But they were interrupted by the student council president. Alice says that she has a great target in mind. She has a friend from her time as a knight. She now runs an orphanage. They were recently attacked by a gang of thugs, and she was asked to help deal with them. Isn't this the perfect place for testing ability and rice? The main character is surprised. They think it's not bad. There are a lot of children there. This is the future workforce. They will unconditionally believe in everything their benefactor says. This will provide him with labor resources for the rest of his life. The young man thanks Alice and asks his friend what she thinks. The girl wants to try. Then it was decided that for the weekend they would go to a shelter. The heroine is seasick. The young man asks Alice what she knows about this city. She answers that it is a quiet town that has nothing to do with the capital. In fact, it is located next to the city where the arena was located. This is not a safe city with an underground arena. It turns out that it was from there that troubles came to other cities. But there's nothing special here. The main character's attention is drawn to a crowd of people. The nun sits on the ground and begs for mercy. Alice says that this is her friend. The main character immediately deals with the hooligans. He is amazed at how quickly they came across the thugs. It was a very fortunate coincidence. Alice asks who they think they are. She says that her master dispels the darkness of this world, gives light, punishes any evil, and lives a righteous life. The main character asks her to stop. He says that this is not his girlfriend's sieve, and asks not to look at him like that. Even the girl they came to took them for crazy. The nun says that the protagonist is an incredibly kind person. She runs to hug her friend. The protagonist understands that religious people are very naive. The thugs decide to start a fight with him. The protagonist defeats one of his opponents with one finger. He says that he is very sorry that they had to see this, but if they decided to play, then he is not at all against it. The young man wins the battle. Thanks to his martial arts, he easily throws all his opponents aside. Alice helps her master and ties up the thugs. They turn to the nun and say that everything is okay now. The girl asks them to pass, apologizing for the rather modest reception. She introduces herself and says that she consulted with Alice about the damage done to the shelter, but she didn't expect a nobleman to come here. She says Alice was right and the main character is a sympathetic person. The children run to hug their sister Alice. The young man looks at his future minions. He decides that he needs to show them who's at the top of the food chain from the very beginning. He turns to the children. The protagonist introduces himself and says that they belong to him. He is here to protect them. He asks the children to be grateful. He enjoys watching the expressions of fear on their faces. However, the children say that he looks very weak. The nuns will leave the protagonist to raise children. These children do not like the nobles. The protagonist decides that if he gets angry, he will lose face. Besides, they really do have things to do. Now they need to focus on them. The protagonist decides to deal with the bandits and asks why they targeted this shelter. Their leader says that he would not say this even under threat of death. However, under threat of death, he decides to tell every single detail. Alice needs the man to tell him where their client is hiding. The main character asks you what's wrong with her. The girl looks very pleased to have received information from the bandits. She says that tomorrow they will strike their base. The nun says that it is amazing and thanks Alice. She approaches the protagonist and wants to discuss the reward with him. The girl gives him a few coins, saying that this is the only thing she can offer. The protagonist refuses. The nun says that if this is not enough, she will find more. She has savings. She can even sell some things. The young man repeats that he does not need it. Indeed, it is rather impolite to give this modest silver to a family member. The girl apologizes for her stupidity. The children start calling the main character names as soon as he enters their room. The nun tries to calm them down and apologizes to him. The main character grabs one of the children and lifts him high above him, towards the ceiling. He says the child leaves him no choice. They may not like nobles, but all children like this. The boy asks to be thrown into the air. The protagonist says that he does not need a reward, and asks the nun how many of them she thinks can be fed with one such silver coin. He says that if she doesn't know what to do, she better cook dinner. Alice asks if her master is wonderful. The monk says she hasn't seen the children this happy in a long time, not since the orphanage became a target. They live in fear every day. The protagonist asks the girl what she wanted to talk about. Alice says it's about the gang leader, Alaban. The girl says that he is a surviving fighter from the arena. The protagonist asks if he really ran away from her. The heroine says that she killed everyone who was there. He must have just been lucky, depending on the fight schedule. Sometimes they had days off. Was he not there that day? She thinks that he wants to build a new arena. He has nowhere to go now. She says she has never fought him, so she doesn't know what he's capable of. The protagonist says that they are the source of the problem. The protagonist realizes that the evil he strives for looks cool, not disgusting. The protagonist decides that they must take on this case to fix everything tomorrow. They will destroy the villain's gang. Today, the main character suggests to rest and prepare for tomorrow. He hopes that their friend will recover, because she slept all day. In the middle of the night, the protagonist opens his eyes and sees a nun in front of him. He wonders what she is doing here. The girl asks if he could give her some love. The young man is extremely surprised. The main character asks this girl what she is doing. The heroine apologizes to him. She says she knows it's an impolite request, but she begs the master. She asks him to show her what love is. The main character says he doesn't know what it is. She says that the Dornan teachers had a few children, what love is. But she was abandoned by her parents, whom she was very young. Since then, she lived without knowing. She asks how she can truly love and protect them. She asks the protagonist to show her mercy and teach her to love. The protagonist tells her not to throw away her maiden honor. She just wants to take her mind off her worries for a moment. He understands what she wants, but he cannot fulfill her request. He prefers slightly different forms. The protagonist says that she cannot get an answer to her question at the moment, but she should not worry. That time will come. He suggests that she just trust him. The girl agrees. The protagonist is confident that she will calm down once they sort everything out. The protagonist asks his partners if they're ready to go with him. They answer affirmatively. The protagonist asks the girl if she is okay. The heroine says yes and apologizes for disturbing her. Then the protagonist suggests moving on to the plan. He mentions the original goal of destroying the gang. This is their quest. And the goal is to test Mishiro's abilities. He says that the girl should become part of a harem, not a fighting unit. But how can he not take advantage of her talent? Their enemy is a bunch of bandits and their boss. At first, they won't interfere to see what the girl is capable of. They can start at any moment. He asks if she is ready. The heroine says that everything is fine. She will try. The main character can't believe that this harmless girl really has magic, which even impressed the dean. When there is a magician with 2 attributes nearby, it becomes even more fun. The hero approaches a country house. It is here. The protagonist asks Alice if she knows what to do. The girl asks him to trust her. She opens the door. The girl says that she was told that they are part of a gang that is committing atrocities in the city. The girl lays out all the information she knows about the boss. The people present start laughing and say that if they were in her place, they would run home as soon as possible. Or does she want to have fun? The girl throws the tied-up bandits into the crowd. She says that it is a gift. The gang leader comes out to meet her. He recognizes his opponent from the ring. He says it's really funny that she came to play with him. The heroine says that she came here to destroy him, and her name is Alice. The thugs smirk and ask if it's just children against them. Race tries to use her magic. She uses frost wind. With this magic, she manages to freeze the bandits' bodies that can no longer move. The girl asks to stand still. She says that no one can hide from her frosty wind. The main character is amazed by her abilities. Ice magic is superbly controlled by wind magic. By combining them, she significantly increased her attack power. Here, obviously, ordinary bandits will not be able to resist her. The girl asks the protagonist if she has coped with it. The young man says that she has exceeded his expectations. With such strength, she could have defeated her offender and the others herself. The girl says that she has never thought about it. However, the gang leader managed to escape from her. He is about to attack the girl, but the protagonist covers her with his body in time. He asks how long the protagonist will be able to maintain such speed. The young man barely managed to save his girlfriend and realizes that this guy specializes in speed. He thinks it's time to finish, and he asks the girl to try to slow him down. Then he can hit. The opponent will become an excellent punching bag. Now the heroes fight together. The girl attacks. However, all her attacks miss their target. The gang leader is too fast. He ends up behind her. The heroine uses the frost wind technique again. She says that the enemy is very fast, but she can detect his presence by the wind. True, in its current form, the effect of the spell will last only a second. She asks the protagonist if this is enough. He replies that it is, and she is great. The young man has only a second to strike his slowed-down opponent. The gang leader flies to the side. The protagonist asks his friend if she has exhausted all her strength. The girl says that she can still continue. The main character is impressed by such endurance. The bandit cannot believe that he will be defeated by some children in the arena. He was the most popular fighter and did not lose a single match. It is simply impossible. A bottle catches his eye. A sly grin crosses his face. The young man rushes to the side, grabs the bottle, and greedily drinks its entire contents. His body suddenly begins to transform. The hero asks him what kind of crap he just drank. The man lets out a loud, sinister laugh. Clenching his fist, he smashes the bottle, spilling all the contents. The main character asks what is going on here. The man continues to burst into malicious laughter. A shard of glass from a bottle accidentally hits the protagonist in the face and wounds him in the cheek. The girls look at what is happening in horror. They realize that the main character is scratched. The bandit turns into a huge pumped-up monster. The main character does not understand what is happening. The enemy runs straight at the young man. He promises to kill him. The young man looks around and asks his girlfriends why they are crying. He tells the enemy to wait because it is not that easy. The protagonist covers his ears, and it seems to him that all sounds have suddenly become very loud. He decides to agree to a duel. A fight ensues at high speed. It is impossible to see with the naked eye who is where. The main character wins this fight. His opponent flies far into the corner and falls into the well. The young man turns to his girlfriends and asks if they are happy now. Girls say he's really cool. Before the opponent's eyes flashes his fights and how the audience applauded him when he won. He likes to fight, but he has never lost before. Those fists won't give in to anyone, but for some reason he's been getting bored lately. With a hole in his forehead, the man tries to come to his senses. He doesn't believe he lost. But suddenly he feels euphoric. He wanted to fight someone stronger than him. The protagonist approaches and asks if they will continue the fight. The man shows complete submission and says that he was captivated by the strength of the protagonist. He asks to be made his subordinate. The protagonist does not understand why he needs male subordinates. Alice says that the master will not take him under his wing because he is a scoundrel who planned to build an arena. The protagonist remembers the arena. He turns to the man, says that he will be his subordinate. He will allow him to build the arena, but only under his supervision. The girl asks what he's talking about. The young man turns to Alessia, says that the arena system she participated in will never be repeated. Total illegal trade. Dubious clientele. That's why she takes it so hard. And all because the people who ran it were petty. But if he were in charge of the arena, he could build an arena that everyone would like. In fact, the main character wants to build a real arena because it's a great idea. After all, it will bring in good money. He's afraid that only Alice will object, but he's sure that after his words, she'll understand everything. The girl is delighted that he's willing to cooperate with the enemy for her sake. She's amazed by his care. The defeated man looks at his master and understands that he is not only strong, but also good. He promises to follow the protagonist until the end of his days. Alice falls to her knees next to him and also bows to the protagonist. After some time, the nun finds out about what happened. Alice says they are safe now. The woman says she can't believe it and thanks everyone involved in the victory. She thanks God that they can continue to live in the orphanage. The young man approaches her and says that he wants to talk to her about something. Suddenly, children run into the room and start complaining that their little sister is crying. They call the aristocrat names again. They ask if he is trying to extort money from their sister. They say that sister only knows how to cook. She is not very good at anything else, so she has no money. The protagonist asks what is wrong with discipline and the orphanage. The girl apologizes and says that he helped them a lot. This happens because she raised children without knowing love. The children bring the main character a large bag of toys and ask if this is enough. What are the most agile boys, looking straight into the eyes of the main character? The children say that nobles love treasures, and that is all they have. They love their sister. The boy says that if the main character makes his sister unhappy, he will never forgive him. The girl kneels in front of him and starts kissing the child. She curses sweetly and tells him not to worry because she is happy. The boy smiles and says that it is the first time he hears this from her. The girl looks at the gentleman and says that she thinks she understands. She says that if this laughter and tears is love, then she has already experienced it. The main character feels like everything is going very well. He turns to his friends and suggests that the girls return to the academy as soon as possible. The protagonist adds that the nun and her children should also go with them. He promises that from now on they will all live on the territory of his family's house. Everyone present is amazed by such generosity. The main character thinks that nothing has been forgotten. He came here for two reasons. First, to test his girlfriend's strength, and second, to provide himself with future labor force. Thus, the protagonist continued his evil path. The nun and the children received housing and education from the young man's family. The bandit began to gather other bandits who could fight in the arena. He wants to give all the villains here to his master. The children walk through the garden with their sister and look at the statues. But there is one more step to absolute evil. Only one main character thought so. Alice asks him if she should pour the young man some tea. The action takes place in the corridor of the Royal Academy of Magic. The elegant lady attracts the attention of all the students. She greets everyone, wishes them good morning. Girls are just crazy about her. They say that despite being a girl, she still looks very cool. Such modesty for the bride of a crown prince is simply rare. The heroine thanks them and replies that they are also very beautiful ladies. There is a noise in the crowd, and one of the girls says that the main character is coming here. The lady, meanwhile, disappears somewhere. She hides so as not to meet the young man. The girl does not know what to do in this situation. The young man looks around and asks Alice if she noticed anyone. The girl says that she did not sense any bad intentions. The young man says that he must have imagined it. A month has passed since then. During this time, they return to school life. His girlfriend wishes him good morning. The young man assumes that he must be being bullied. The girl says that she has already changed because today is magical practice and physical education. Alice asks if these are her summer training clothes. They look very comfortable. The protagonist thinks that he adores his friends and this academy too. He turns to the girl and wants to talk to her about magical practice. He asks her not to use ice magic and not to show all her power. The girl asks why she can't do this. The young man answers that her magic is too strong. There will definitely be people who will try to get it. The heroine says that her family is poor, so to repay them for their kindness, she needs to graduate from school with honors and get a good job. The young man is asked not to worry about this. He will take care of her for the rest of his life. The heroine is amazed by his kindness. She says it's unfair to suddenly talk about such things. Meanwhile, the lady is peeking out from around the corner. She doesn't understand what's going on here. She feels like the world is unfair because there's always some pretty girl next to the main character, and it's just unbearable for her. She comes out of her hiding place and wishes the boys good morning. The protagonist greets Karen. The girl realizes that she has nothing more to say. She jumped out of hiding without thinking. The young man says that he did not expect that she would dare to talk to him. He asks if her father will be angry. The heroine answers that she just said hello to him. The main character asks his ex-fiancée if everything is okay with her. The lady takes the protagonist's friend by the hand and says that she will lead her as a member of an honorable family. She asks, she must have a girlfriend named Mashiro Rice. Karen also introduces herself by name. The last name says that she is pleased to meet you. A sigh escapes the heroine's lips. Not long ago, one of the members of the honorable family treated her very rudely. The girl apologizes, says that he is from her faction. The main character is pleased that his ex-fiancée was worried about her current girlfriend. It's very much like her. Ray says that everything is fine and asks the heroine not to worry. Karen says that the student council president keeps thinking about the main character. She says that the girl will be glad if he comes to her for a cup of tea. The protagonist understands that this girl does not give up trying to lure him into the council. He asks Karen if she is not a member of the student council since she calls its chairman that. The girl says that this is true. She likes to help others. She takes the protagonist by the hand and asks him why he really doesn't join the student council. She says she would be very happy about that. Suddenly, the heroine realizes what she is saying and corrects herself. She convinces the young man that the president will be very happy about this. The protagonist replies that he has already told her that he will not join the student council, and besides, she is the fiancée of the crown prince. Such things should be done with your fiancé. The girl pulls away, says he's right. She apologizes, blaming it on an old habit. The heroine says goodbye and leaves. The main character tells her that they will see each other again. The girl moves away some distance and asks herself in horror what she is doing. The protagonist's friend Karen was noticed to be behaving strangely. Then the next day, the girl greets the young man again. A day later, they bump into each other in the library. The girl is the first to start a conversation about what a coincidence it is. Karen sits down next to the main character, justifying it by saying that they don't study in the same classroom, so they can sit next to each other. She even lies in wait for him in the toilet. After some time, she even offers the young man to have lunch together. Then, embarrassed, she runs away and says that she did not offer him anything. The young man doesn't understand what all this means. He wonders why Karen runs into him so often. She hasn't done anything like this since the crown prince appeared. The protagonist suggests that something might have happened to her. The young man turns to his friend and asks where Alice went. She says that she said she would use the dining room to show her something. The protagonist says that they got along well. In the dining room, the crown prince sits surrounded by beautiful girls. The main character notices him. He says he didn't expect to see him in such company. He thought the prince always dined with Karen. The girl asks why both. The protagonist says they are engaged. The heroine says the lady always wears men's clothes and asks why she does this. The protagonist says it can't be explained in a few words. Karen is the only child in her parents' family. The current head of the family had no other children except for her. But in their family, only a man can be an heir. As a desperate measure, Carmen's parents raised her as a boy. However, a year ago, the king decided to make her the bride of the Prince of Arnia. She has the blood of one of the great families, so she became a suitable candidate. The protagonist says that this is just his assumption, but Karen was taught to behave like a man for a very long time. After all this, she could not dress like a woman. The girl sadly says that it is simply terrible. The main character is told that the engagement was forced upon him by the king, but the prince is not interested in the girl, so he allowed her to dress like a man. Despite this, she gets along well with other girls. But suddenly, something attracts the attention of both heroes. The young man envies the prince and says that he is clearly in grief. The hero himself still has no such grief. Your friend sees rice appear in front of his face. She puts a piece of something tasty from the table into his mouth. The girl says she tried to repeat what others did. She just had a candy in her pocket. Food tastes better when a beautiful girl feeds you. The heroine never ceases to amaze the young man. She is a cutie in every way. The girl says that guys like it when there are many girls around them. The heroine says with annoyance that there is really something good in this. She looks seriously into the eyes of the main character and asks if it is true that he also dreams of something similar. The young man does not know what to answer her. The girls turn their attention to the treats at the table. They carefully examine the hamburger that Mr. Ogre has created. The protagonist notices that his girlfriend looks scary when she's angry, so from now on he better watch his language, although it's even a little cute. It's like she's jealous of him. Suddenly, a thought creeps into the main character's head. The young man understands why Karen has been communicating with him all the time lately. She wants the prince to be jealous. That's why she decided to get closer to her ex-fiancé. The protagonist thinks he has figured out her cunning plan. He says it is very interesting. In this case, the main character also decides to act. He promises that the girl will see what he is capable of. The young man asks Alice to take his things. The heroine says that she thinks the matter is a little different. The friend agrees with her. 10 years ago, there was a ball in the palace. Young people talked, danced, and drank. In the garden, shrouded in night, a little girl sits and cries. The main character, named Ogre, comes up and calls Karen by name. The girl turns around and recognizes the boy. Her eyes are red from crying. The hero took her hand and asked if her father had punished her again. She answered that he had punished her because she was a bad girl. The young man realized that his girlfriend was in a bad mood and decided to cheer her up. He took something out of his pocket and put it on her hair. It was a hairpin. The hero said that he thought it looked good with her beautiful hair. He added that from now on this hairpin would be there even when he was not there, and then he asked her to stop crying. Karen thinks that Ogre helped stop her tears and became a real hero to her. The girl's father throws a vase on the floor and it breaks. He screams that this is not a joke. Ogre Verret has no magical powers. Then he announces that the engagement is off and tells his daughter that she should have nothing more to do with him. The girl was shocked. At one of the events, Ogre noticed his girlfriend and approached her. He asked about her condition and clarified what was wrong with her clothes. The girl looked away and then ran away without letting the hero say a word. Karen looks at her reflection and touches the mirror. She thinks about how she was too weak to disobey her father. When he broke off their engagement, and when he made her act like a man, she had hurt Ogre. There was nothing she could do about it. As much as she wanted to make things right, she didn't think he would ever treat her the same way again. Opening the door of her room, the girl saw the main character. He greeted her and said that he came here because he couldn't wait to see her again. Karen looked at him questioningly. The ogre told her that she was beautiful today and shining like the sun. The girl was in a stupor. The hero continues to say that it is so wonderful to see her face in the morning. And then he asked permission to meet her tomorrow. The girl did not understand how this was possible. What had suddenly come over the guy? Then he pushed her against the wall and hovered over her. Karen blushed. She thought it was a dream. She must be dreaming. The hero asks why she is silent. She looks so sweet. Then he walked away from her and said that they would see each other in class. The girl's school bag fell to the floor. She realized that this was not a dream. The hero walked and told Alice and Mishiro to follow him. Mishiro asked what the protagonist was planning. He replied that Karen was trying to make the crown prince jealous, but he would not allow her to use him. So, as a countermeasure, he will become even closer to her. If he pretends that his intentions are serious, she will have to back off. Otherwise, her reputation will suffer from the relationship with him. He's not going to hold back. This fight will be his. Alice and Mishiro exchanged glances, and then Ogre started getting closer to Karen as fast as possible. He met her every morning and showered her with compliments. He said that she had very beautiful hair. He couldn't stop looking at it, and also that she had a nice smile. The students of the academy are discussing the fact that Ogre Verret is trying to hit on Lady Rebecca. Then they notice the main character of the rumors and fall silent. Karen hid behind a pole. She blushed at these rumors. She thinks about the fact that Over compliments her so often. Does that mean he's in love with her? She needs to think carefully about this. She began to think about where to spend her honeymoon. In the flower city of Floriu or in the blessed garden of Lillishire. She does not want to live in a mansion. A small house for two is enough, although she wanted 5 children. The butler turned to Mrs. Karen, thereby frightening her. He announced that in a few minutes there would be a dinner with Prince Arnia. It was time for her to go. The girl looked down and agreed. The table is already set in the dining room. The prince is sitting at the head of the table. He turned to the girl and said that she was late. She apologized to His Highness. He gave her the go-ahead to sit down. Then he smiled. He folded his hands and rested his chin on them and looked slyly at the girl. He told her that she would have to bring him more money. 5 gold coins would be enough. Karen was surprised by this and reminded him that she had recently given him 5 gold coins. He replied that they had already been spent, which is why he was asking. He explains that his father is so stubborn. He is the crown prince, so why not give him some money? But his father says that he should understand how ordinary people live. However, this is inconvenient. Arnia tells her to ask her father for money since she has run out. The girl tensed and trembled. She thinks that for her father she is nothing more than the prince's bride, and their relationship is far from good. Asking him for money is a bad idea. If all this becomes known, the girl may suffer. She remembers a terrible moment from her childhood. With despair in her eyes, the girl says that she will do everything, and the prince smiles slyly. Then he stood up and said that he would look forward to it, and added that they would see each other next week. Then he remembered that he wanted to say something else. He says he doesn't care that she wears men's clothes, so he kept quiet. But for some reason he always felt uncomfortable when he saw her. He recently realized why. It's all about her long red hair. He told her that if she wanted to look like a man, then why not cut her hair? And then he left. The girl sat and was in a stupor for another minute. She looked at the cutlery lying nearby and thought that she didn't know why she let her hair grow out. She probably wanted to be a normal girl, despite everything. To wear a female uniform, to wear skirts, to spend her free time in beautiful clothes. She put the knife through her hair and remembered Ogre's words about her beautiful hair and that from now on this hairpin would be there even when he was not there. She remembered Ogre's smile when he greeted her in the morning and called her by name. The girl hugged her hair and realized why she let it grow. It was because he complimented her hair. She asked the guide to help her. The hero looks at the person in front of him and asks how long they had been so close and how glad she was that she ambushed him on his way home. That person was President Milfanti. She stood there smiling at the boy. He looked at her breasts and said that he knew they weren't real. The girl pretended not to understand what he was talking about, and then she suggested returning to their topic. She asked about the last time the boy had spoken to Lady Rebecca. The boy did not understand how she knew and confirmed that they had spoken before dinner. The president says that there was a student council meeting this afternoon. Miss Rebecca missed it. This is very unusual because she always warns about such things. It seems that something happened to her. She asked the guy to help find her. President Malfanti addressed the boy by name. He asked about the one she called Ogre. She understood what he didn't like and suggested calling him Aggregator. He pointed out that she couldn't come up with nicknames. Milfanti replied that she would then call him Dear. The ogre didn't beat around the bush and asked why she had called him. The girl asked the guy if he knew how cruelly Prince Arnia was treating Lady Rebecca. The hero thought that she probably meant his lack of interest in his fiancée and his flirtatious behavior towards other girls. But calling it cruelty would be an exaggeration. Although, from a woman's point of view, it is probably cruel. The ogre looked at her and answered what he knew. Milfanti was surprised that he knew this and still decided to be on her side. So the rumors were true. Verret is a hero of justice. The main character did not understand her reaction. The president said that it would save time. That is indeed the case. The prince is extorting a huge sum of money from Mrs. Rebecca. Using his position, he demands unreasonable things and gets pleasure from making her suffer. The girl adds that Lady Rebecca endures all this alone. Ogre Verret was in shock. Milfanti asks about the hero being on her side. She also despises the prince for what he did to her. Let's figure this out together. The ogre didn't understand what all this meant. It was the first time he had heard of it. But it meant that Karen hadn't used him. He remembers all the compliments he gave her and all his actions. The hero realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He thinks that perhaps in this situation she mistook him for an attractive man. That's all she needed. He realized that he had misled Karen. The hero understands that his plans for the harem will collapse if the Duke's daughter falls in love with him. He must fix this immediately. He repeated the girl's words about Karen enduring all this alone. He asked President Milfanti to wait for him in the student council room. He would bring Karen there. The girl is sitting in the closet of her room and crying. The hero asks her to come out. He opened the closet door and said that he knew she was there. The girl was surprised to see the guy. She asked how he knew Mr. was here. He replied that it was nothing surprising. When she was feeling bad, she always hid in the closet. She understood what he was talking about and laughed slightly and then buried her head in her hands. Karen said that it is impossible to change a person. Even when she became an adult and learned to behave like an aristocrat, she remained the same as before, a crybaby who can't do anything. The hero remembered their childhood and thought that she had not grown one iota. He grabbed her hand. Karen asked Ogre to stop. She looked terrible now. He shouldn't look at her. He replied that he didn't care. He saw her tearful face so often that he was already tired of it. Then he told the girl to listen carefully. He tells her that they will always remain childhood friends. That's how they were, and that's how they always will be. Then he added that therefore she did not need to pretend in front of him. He asked her if she understood, and she thinks that this way she carefully sends her to the friend zone. Thus, all his recent contacts with her will be considered as the actions of a childhood friend. Karen rushed to hug the guy. The ogre hugged her back and thought that she must have understood and hugged him in a friendly way. Now everything was okay. In reality, everything was wrong. Karen thinks that it was and always will be. They will never be separated. The young man realized that the girl had calmed down. She confirmed this. He suggested that she go to the president. She agreed. The window in the girl's room opened. And the next moment, Ogre jumped out of the window with Karen in his arms. The young lady screamed. The young man whispered to the girl to lower her voice. The aristocrat blushed. Having landed, the hero said that the president asked him to take her to the student council room, but no one should see them, so she should try not to make noise. Karen was read and taken aback by the boy's words that he whispered in her ear. The young man did not understand what was wrong with her. He assumed that she was afraid of the height. However, the main thing was that she fell silent. President Milfonte sat at the table and said that she was waiting for Lady Rebecca. Karen got off the guy's hands and began apologizing to President Milfonte for being absent from the student council meeting without permission. The girl added that she was ready to bear any punishment. However, Milfonte only smiled and said that this was enough. She accepted her apology. Then she said that she wanted to discuss something else now, namely, what to do with Prince Arnia. Karen looked at Ogre, who apologized for intruding into her personal life. He thinks that he would prefer that the prince completely reformed and Karen became his bride again. However, it is impossible to punish the crown prince in the same way as he did to Rur. Milfonte said she had an idea. She asked her comrades if they knew about the duel system in the academy. Karen and Ogre asked Milfonte for information about the duel. She explained that if the claims of both sides contradict each other, they can hold a duel in front of all the students to recognize the winner's right. The ogre realized that he could fight the crown prince openly. Karen asked if she was really suggesting that she fight the crown prince. She replied that she was not. Then Ogre intervened and said that he would do it. Karen looked at the guy in surprise. She started talking about how it was too dangerous. Milfonte knew she was going to say that and laughed. Then, making a serious face, she said that, however, there is one more rule in the system. The loser will have to do one thing for the winner. Does the hero really agree to this anyway? Ogre Verret agreed and said that he would challenge Prince Arnia to a duel. Karen blushed and thought that he was doing this for her sake. The hero thinks that he will never allow Karen to lose this comfortable position. Now he can break his spirit and make him start a new life. What's more, he has a chance to fight this bad man. He will kill two birds with one stone. President Milfonte said that everything was decided. She would get Prince Arnia's approval. The date and everything else would be announced later. For now, they could go to their rooms. Karen leaned on the hero and said that she was dizzy. He realized that she was hopeless and told her to hold on to him. The president told them to go. When the heroes left, Milfonte stood by the window and giggled. She was surprised that the ogre would move the way she wanted. Now she will be able to see the very magic cancellation that Bombol told the director about. The girl is interested in how he will fight Prince Arnia, who has strong magic power. And, what is most interesting, this clear look of his when he decided to take part in the duel. Milfonte doesn't know why, but looking at those straightforward eyes full of justice, she got excited. The girl stood by the window, blushing and giggling. The next day, a notice was posted on the board that a duel would take place between Prince Arnia and Ogre Verret. The students of the academy were delighted with this news. The protagonist was surprised that the president had managed to make a poster. It still works out, and the crown prince's approval has already been received. Suddenly he heard strange sounds and looked away. Mashiro was surrounded by people from their newspaper club, and they began to interrogate her and photograph her from all sides. She asked them to stop. Suddenly, Alice stood in front of her and began to threaten the photographers with a knife. They began to panic and apologized. Then the hero called them by name. They greeted him. Mashiro said that the student council president secretly told her about Rebecca's circumstances. She can't believe that something like this happened. She apologized to the guy for thinking badly of him. Alice, crying, said that in reality he was just trying to get rid of Lady Rebecca. It was a well-thought-out plan. The ogre thinks that he doesn't quite understand what they're talking about, but it seems that the favor towards him, which had dropped at some point, has increased even more. That's good. The girls said that they would root for him in the duel. They would do everything possible to support him. The ogre thanked his friends and said that he would tell them about his plans. However, not here. Alice summarizes the protagonist's plan. He intends to defeat the prince in order to make him change and treat Lady Rebecca better. The young man confirmed everything. He calls it the birth of a new prince. He thinks that this is a great name for the operation. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. He became curious about who it was. Prince Arnia entered the church and greeted everyone. The girls were surprised. The ogre doesn't understand what he wants in this old building. Then he greeted the prince and thanked him for agreeing to his offer of a duel. His Highness kicked the chair standing next to him with all his might. He angrily asked what duel. How dare he treat him like that? The hero calmly asks if it is really okay to show your true face like this. Arnia started to take something out of his pocket and said that it works both ways. He put down a newspaper where it was written that the prince would not allow anyone to take her. Duel for the heart of Karen Rebecca. The hero asked what this meant. The prince said that simply accepting a challenge from a scumbag would be too boring. That's why he used this woman to make things more interesting. Now he's a hero of justice who sacrifices himself for his bride. He will become more popular with women. The match is the day after tomorrow, so he hastened to make arrangements. The ogre thinks that this guy did all this overnight just to become more popular. How clever of him. The prince really does have a bad character. Perhaps he can even turn a loss to his advantage. Arnia asked what was bothering the guy that he had shown his true face. But in fact, it was not a problem. He smiled and looked at Mashiro and Alice. The hero understood the prince's goal from his look. However, he would not give him the girls. He stepped forward and covered them with his body. Alice and Mashiro were touched by the master's actions. The prince realized that the boy valued them very much. This is interesting. He began to stretch out his arms towards Alice and talk about how stealing women belonging to others was what he loved most. The ogre mentally noted the prince's stupidity. He assumed that he wanted to die. Alice looked at the prince with indifference. The prince stretched his hands towards Alice. Mashiro watched this. Alice began to crack her fingers. But suddenly the prince's hand was intercepted by the main character. He angrily told the prince to stop and not involve Alice and Mashiro in this. Arnia laughed and sarcastically noted the guy's concern. Denny said that this time he would retreat, but after the duel, the girls would be his. He was looking forward to it. The boy thinks that it was dangerous. Alice was standing behind him. She was angry. The boy mentally called the prince a bad name. The hero wanted to settle things peacefully, and he tried to throw himself on a nuclear bomb. Mashiro rushed to hug the guy and said that this man was so scary, and then thanked the guy for covering him. Alice said that she was ready to swear even greater loyalty to him. While Mashiro hugged the guy, her chest touched his back. He thought that even in this situation there were some advantages. Alice notes that Arnia is supposed to be the next ruler. Doesn't the king teach him anything at all? His Highness is constantly skipping classes, and no one knows about his abilities and magical attributes. But, although the prince is spoiled, he is still a member of the royal family, and therefore he should have inherited strong magic. Something must be done about this. The ogre agreed with Alice and said that it was time for them to go. Mashiro was sitting on the boy's back. The heroes look at a large building. The hero explains that it is a training tower. Mashiro noted that first-year students were not allowed to enter there. The ogre said that it was not a problem and took out the key. Then he began to open the door. The girl was surprised that the guy had a key. He told her that President Nolfanti had lent it to him. Last night, the president asked the guy to wait. She handed him the key to the training tower. She told him that he could train alone for the remaining 2 days before the duel. In addition, he and Rice were allowed to be absent from classes. The hero asked her if she was sure that it was possible to do this without permission. She laughed, and then she said that she was the president of the student council, the highest authority of the academy. The door to the training tower opened. The hero said that it was time to begin. As she entered, Mishiro said that this place was so big. Alice asked what they would do here. The ogre said that we need to come up with a way to defeat the mage without using delete. Mashiro realized that all the students would be watching the duel, so he wouldn't be able to use it. That's why the hero needs her help. First, he asked her to create snow using ice magic. The girl began to use magic. The hero praised her, and then he said that her magic was very beautiful. The girl blushed and thanked the guy. The ogre apologized to them for making the two of them the bet in the duel. But he told them not to worry, he would win and protect them. He added that they can rest easy. Mashiro was touched by the guy's words. The next moment, the hero took off his shirt and decided to start training. He told the girls that he would be doing meditation. They were both amazed and embarrassed by his beautiful form. The young man says that up until now, he has been conducting research based on the assumption that the enemy's magic can be destroyed. So he has very little experience with magic compared to ordinary magicians. Mashiro said that it was because he got rid of her almost immediately. However, if he can't use delete, he needs to fight by feeling the magic with his body. The girl understood what the guy was getting at. He announced that he would be under the magic of snow for the next 2 days. His body had to get used to it. The girl was shocked. She said that he could catch a cold. Alice calmed her friend down and said that Mr. Ogre had gone through even worse training. Mashiro thinks that indeed, even as a child, she grew up practicing magic. Obviously, the lack of such experience would be a serious obstacle for a magician. But these trainings are too reckless. Will he be able to endure them? However, this is what makes Ogre different from all the others. The girl said that she promised to support him so she would make it snow for 2 days. The guy thanked Mashiro and said that he was in her debt. The girl explained that the ice would disappear in a few hours. She would recreate it when time ran out. Alice wished the guy all the best and said that they would be waiting for him on the 2nd floor. Ogre Verret sat and meditated under the snow, and Alice and Mashiro sat on the 2nd floor and drank tea and cookies. There are spirits in this world that cannot be seen with the ordinary eye. These spirits have attributes. They are usually represented as follows: water and wind, fire and earth, lightning and light. When the corresponding mana is poured into them, they transform it into energy and create a phenomenon. This is what is called magic. But there are no spirits that match his magic power. In other words, he has no magic ability. When he says that, people might misunderstand and think that he has mana. But he does have mana. He inherited the enormous magic power of the Verret family. It seems that his magic power is like poison to spirits. However, by infusing his mother into the enemy's spirit, he can mark their spell. This is the principle of operation of Deleta. However, the hero cannot use it in a duel, so he needs to think a little. In short, the main weapon of the mages should be in their magic. There's a lot of snow around the boy. Mashiro cleans the boy, and Alice cleans the snow around. The guy is breathing, and steam is coming out of his mouth. Then the girls feed the guy. They sleep on the second floor. Mishiro extends the spell. There was so much snow that the girls were able to build a snowman. The next day, afternoon, there was one day left before the duel. The guy told his friend that the ice was about to disappear. She had already run to restore it. However, the hero told her that she did not need to create a new one. Mishiro was surprised. She noticed that this time the ogre didn't even open his eyes. The duration of the ice depends on our concentration power. While he was able to guess before her that the magic was about to disappear, the young man opened his eyes and said that he understood everything. Putting on the shirt, he said that with this he would not lose to any magician. The day of the duel has come. The students are going to this event. They discussed that this day has finally come. They discuss which of them will win. Everyone bets on the prince. They then noticed that Ogre Verret was sitting in the audience. The head of the Verret family and Ogre's father. Someone turned to the man. He looked at the man. It was Florin Milfonti, dean of the Richburg Academy of Magic, Reina's teacher. Gordon said that today was his son's finest hour. The woman noted that the man had not changed at all, still the same caring father. But his son certainly achieved great success immediately after entering the academy. Depending on the wishes of the winner, she may need his permission, which is why she invited him here. Florin said that there was still time before the duel began, and she suggested waiting a little. Waiting room. The hero looks at Karen, who is sitting under the table, and asks what she is doing. She trembled and replied that the duel was against the crown prince. If the hero lost, the royal person would definitely demand something indecent. The ogre asked her to look at him and asked if she really thought he would lose. And he thought that of course his demand was outrageous. But the hero was confident in himself. Karen denies everything. The guy tells her to calm down and sit on the couch. The girl notes the guy's calmness. She asks how he is going to fight him. He can use her magic. The ogre asks her not to worry, he has prepared countermeasures. Karen smiled and said that she believed him. And then she asked what he would demand from the prince in case of victory. The ogre realized that he had not yet thought about this. His goal is to get the prince to rebuild his relationship with Karen, but it would be weird if he just told him to start over with Karen. The ogre said that he would grant this right to Karen. She was surprised. The young man thinks that now, by showing that she is his childhood friend, Karen must be hoping that the prince will be seriously attracted to her. The ogre approached the girl. She blushed. He asked her what she desired deep in her heart. She began to think about what she wanted. Could she really say that looking back on her past? But she had known about her desire for a long time. She just couldn't say it out loud. She cried and said that she wanted to be with Ogre forever. This was her deepest desire. The guy thought that she wanted to be with the prince forever, and he was glad about it. The hero got up from the couch and asked the girls to just wait. Her wish would come true after the duel was over. The host announced the beginning of the duel. They are going to have a duel between two students. First year, Arnie Arondism versus first year, Ogre Verret. The fight will be held according to the Richburg Academy system. Some of the students were rooting for the prince. Some were supporting Ogre. Arnie asked the hero if he was popular among the boys. He replied that it was because the prince had made them very angry. He didn't need their support. The host asked both sides to put on their battle cloaks and gloves. The ogre gracefully threw on his cloak and put on his gloves. The ogre had a white cloak and gloves, and the prince had black ones. They were unhappy. The presenter asked what happened. Arnia said that black doesn't suit him, and Ogre doesn't like white. The prince suggested changing it, but the host forbade it. He explained that it was a magical robe that would help determine the winner. The magic was already cast, so nothing could be changed. He asked about the guy's readiness. Then, without waiting for an answer, he announced the start of the duel. Arnia knelt down and called upon the spirit of the earth. He asked him to pierce his enemy. The girls who were rooting for the prince were delighted, and the side supporting the main character was very worried. The ogre realized that his magic had an earth attribute. He remarked that it was careless of the prince to miss like that. He replied that he had never shown his magic to anyone at the academy. It was just a greeting. The ogre thinks that, as expected of the crown prince, he deliberately hid his abilities. However, the hero came up with an answer that can handle any kind of magic. The prince turned to the boy and asked if he was ready. The next big spell could turn him into nothing. Arnia begins to cast a spell. The ogre analyzes the situation. A long cast of a large-scale spell. Carefree pose. The opponent was completely focused on the spell, ignoring it. The hero does not understand what is really happening. The enemy is completely open. All his life, the hero faithfully followed the path of evil. The father asked his son to rest, but he refused. He explained that he had no magical abilities, and that he had to overcome his weakness so as not to bring shame on the Verret family. The boy's going to become a great nobleman like his father. To become a true villain, he studied magic thoroughly and honed his fighting techniques, never slowing down. He will never give in to any opponent. Even now, he remains determined to fight the prince, and yet it seems that he can defeat him with one blow. The prince is completely open. The ogre expected a formidable opponent and therefore felt disappointed. Seeing the enemy's stupor, the prince asks if magic can really cause such horror that he can't even move. Once the stones are collected, he can activate his technique. Until then, they can talk. The ogre doesn't understand what kind of circus the prince has arranged here. Arnia began to say that he had not yet shown his true strength. The main character doesn't listen to him. He thinks that during this time he could have defeated him at least 3 times. Looks like he won't have to use the tactic he came up with. How boring. The hero thought that he could talk as much as he wanted. Then he would give him a light slap in the face, and that would be it. Arnia says that he has the magic of kings. A loser like him will never be able to compare to him. The guy asked if this was really the result of his efforts, looking at the huge stone above him. The prince will turn his attention to the detachment of light magicians. These girls are his followers. Once the hero is injured, there will be a small mistake, and he will not be able to be saved. The ogre couldn't resist and said that Arnia was very boring. He was surprised. Then he laughed and asked if Karen Rebekenke was his childhood friend. He confirmed it. Arnia said that this guy is boring. He hangs out with a cross-dressing girl. He would refuse to even walk next to her. However, she has a handy wallet, so he keeps her close. Then, with a mad face, the prince asked what was valuable about this girl. The boy's eyes widened. He began to remember all the moments associated with Karen and when she called him by name. The ogre was clearly angry after hearing about the value of his girlfriend. Feeling threatened, the prince tensed up and then said that it was useless. He wouldn't be able to get to him. The presenter says the prince has finished collecting mana. He uses the skill Stone Rain. He starts attacking the guy. The support group is worried about Ogre. The prince laughs, but the next moment his eyes widen. The protagonist easily passes through the Stone Rain, dodging attacks. The prince is shocked. He doesn't understand how he was able to dodge it. It was a rain of stones. Then he noticed that his eyes were closed. The ogre says that his training was not in vain. He's not looking at his worthless magic. He's looking at his mana. The next moment, finding himself next to the enemy, the hero strikes him. The presenter says that Sir Time is dealing a powerful blow. The hero approached the prince and grabbed him by the collar. He asked him if he knew what made Karen cry. He tells him to get up, because the duel has just begun. But the prince was unconscious. The ogre was very surprised. He didn't believe what was happening. He was holding back. He began to throw the prince in different directions, thinking that he was just pretending. The presenter asks the hero to stop. Arnia can no longer fight. The ogre says that he could not give up so quickly. The prince lay unconscious with his pants down. The students watch what is happening. The girls talk about how they will refuse the prince. The presenter asks the students to stop looking at the royal dignity. In the end, Ogre Verret emerged victorious. After 23 minutes from the start, the duel between the prince and the ogre came to an end. The ogre was disappointed by the prince's weakness, but he still believed that he had achieved his goal, and that goal was to force the prince to start all over again with Karen. By cutting off her affection, he was given the opportunity to create the long-awaited harem. The host announces that the winner's request to the loser has been changed from Sir Verret's. She will be voiced by Lady Karen Rebekonku. He asked her to come on stage. The hero thinks that now his friend should say that she wants to start all over again with the prince. He is counting on her. However, the girl looks at him with loving eyes. The ogre does not understand her gaze. Karen turns to the prince of the Rondism kingdom, Arnia Rondism. She asks him to call off their engagement. She wants permission to be engaged to Ogre Verret. The main character is shocked. Mishiro and Alice are shocked. All the students are shocked. He wanted to ask Karen what she was doing, but someone congratulated the guy. It was his father and the dean. The boy was embarrassed to see his father here. Then he started telling the dean that this was some kind of mistake. The Marquis asked his son again why this was a mistake. Forn says that immediately after the duel began, she turned to Karen to find out his request and received permission from both sides. From her point of view, his victory was guaranteed in any case. She showed permission from Duke Gordon and Rebecca, as well as from the king. The ogre was surprised that Karen's father had also given his consent. They even had the king's signature. It turns out that the hero was officially engaged to Karen with the approval of the king. The ogre fainted as his plan with the harem fell apart. The boy woke up 3 hours later in the infirmary. He didn't expect Karen to say that. What was she thinking? He opened his eyes and saw Karen. He said that it was terrible. The girl was dressed in a female uniform and asked the guy how he felt. He was taken aback by her appearance. The ogre doesn't understand what's going on here. He wonders why Karen's breasts have become so bouncy. The girl, noticing the guy's gaze, asked him if he was really interested in her form. He confirmed this, although he was thinking about her form. Karen explained that her father had come to watch the duel. He had reluctantly agreed to her request at that moment. She remembers what her father told her, that he would no longer interfere in her life and that she could do as she wanted. Karen said that he had completely given up on her, but wearing men's clothes and other things had completely disappeared. Now she decided to wear what she liked. She asked the guy about how she looked. The ogre blushed and said that it suited her. Then he came to his senses and said that this was not important now. He asked her what it was. Namely, what was this engagement announcement? The girl reminded him that when they were sitting in the waiting room, she said that she wanted to be with Ogre, and he would answer yes. The hero didn't believe what he said. He realized that it was true. The girl sat down on the bed and said that she had something she wanted to ask. She said that she wanted to become his wife and would do everything possible to make it happen. She asked him if he would get engaged to her. The guy looked at the girl in shock. She started talking about how she was a crybaby and didn't have any particular strengths. But just like how he saved her, this time she wanted to be the one to support him. The ogre began to think about an engagement with Karen. However, later he began to push these thoughts away, because he dreams of creating a harem. Now that he thought about it, wasn't Karen a very sweet girl? He began to think about their history, their childhood in the girl's form. He then agreed to get engaged to Karen. She blushed and was very happy. She rushed to hug him and thank him. She was very happy. And the hero thought that he would still think about his harem plan. He'll think about it another day. The heroes were very close to each other. Karen decided to act and began to approach the guy. Suddenly, the door to the infirmary opened. Mishiro appeared in the doorway. The hero said her name, and Karen was very embarrassed. The protagonist's friend invited Miss Rebecca to have a little chat. She agreed. The girls went out into the corridor. Mishiro looked at the guy and said that he was a fool. The hero suddenly felt cold and did not understand what he had done. Going out into the corridor, Karen asked the girl what had happened. Mishiro was silent at first, but then she congratulated the girl on her engagement. She thanked her. Then she said that nothing had been decided yet, and she announced that, from now on, they would be rivals. Karen began to panic in her mind. She was just thinking about how this girl liked Ogre too. She doesn't know what to do. With this cute girl with huge breasts as a rival, she thinks that one engagement is not enough. Not to mention that she is apparently an expert in magic. She says that it is assumed that the ogre did not have much training against mages, yet he was able to dodge the prince's magic perfectly. Karen realized that it was all thanks to Mishiro and thanked her. The rival's heart began to beat faster and she thought that this girl was very cool. Then she thought about the sarcasm and started to get indignant. Karen started to apologize and say that she didn't mean it that way. Alice watches from the side and doesn't understand if she should stop them. She didn't do it. In any case, Mr. Ogre had successfully demonstrated his attraction. Lady Rebecca was also saved. Case closed. Alice is interested in what the king is doing now. Castle Rondism. Gordon and Florin stand before the king. He reads that the outcome of the duel is the cancellation of the engagement between Arnia and Karen Rebekenka and the renewal of the engagement with Ogre Verret. The dean confirmed that this was the result of the duel. They stood before embarred Rondism, the king of the Rondism kingdom, Arnia's father. The man smiled and said that he gave his consent for this. However, he is surprised that they managed to convince Anju. Florin responded that he is stricter about the rules than anyone else. Embret apologized to the dean for the trouble his son had caused. The woman asked him to speak more simply. His boy wouldn't even go to class. The king thought that if he gave him the same experience as the other students, he could correct his arrogance, but he was too naive. Then he saw a photo of Mishiro and Alice. He recognized her as a certain Chris Lagunica. He said that he treated her very badly. She was a great commander of their holy knights. She has a very straightforward sense of justice. However, she found it difficult to deal with the current nobles. The king had to banish her for her own good. He understands that it must have been hard for her. Gordon said that His Majesty should not worry. Now the girl is doing well, together with Ogre, who has the same aspirations. The old man smiled and said that everything was clear to him. Then he added that they could go. He turned to Gordon and asked him to take care of Chris and the Rebecken family. The protagonist's father agreed. Florin looked over her shoulder at him, looking at the aquarium with fish. The woman thinks that they gave her a good beating. The connection with the Duke's family, which had already begun to crumble, suddenly became stronger again. However, by bringing in the crown prince, they had gained the approval of the royal family. Normally, the Rebekenka family would never have agreed to such an engagement. As a result, another influential figure appeared next to Ogre Verret. The woman clenched her fists and asked Reina if she was awake. She confirmed it. The woman turned her and looked at her with an angry look. The next moment, she gave her a strong slap in the face, causing the girl to fall. Florn screamed that it was all because she suggested a duel. She only caused harm. Renina held her cheek and said that she thought that during the battle with the royal family member, Ogre would show his magic cancellation. The dean told her not to make excuses and hit her in the stomach. Then she said that the Magic Academy competition would start soon. With a fierce look, the woman said that this time Reina should try to attract the hero to her side. If she failed, she would be in trouble. The girl was bleeding from her mouth, and she said that she would do as the woman wanted. When the young lady left, Florn thought that her expression had not changed at all. She had called her a creepy girl, despite the fact that she was her student. Then she laughed and said that she was now completely her puppet. Now the fun would begin. The next morning, the students were discussing yesterday's duel. They were saying that Ogre was incredible. They were calling him a saint. The heroes walked along the corridor. The young man noted that it was so noisy here. Mashiro said that it was because he was so cool yesterday. Alice noticed that everyone was talking about him. The hero thinks that they are probably talking about how he had the nerve to publicly hit the crown prince and challenge the royal family. That's good. Let his bad reputation spread far and wide. Karen greeted the hero and his friends. She asked permission to join them. The boy greeted the girl, and she said that of course she could join after all, she was his fiancée. The students thought that this company had become even more extravagant. Some girl was watching the main character from behind a column. She spoke with admiration about how Monsieur Verret was the very essence of elegance. A girl with long curls and big shining eyes appears in the corridor of the academy. This is Satya Schulte, president of the unofficial Ogre Verret fan club. The members of the club try to stay in the shadows and not attract attention. Satya, along with the other girls wearing sunglasses, secretly watch the ogre walking down the hallway. Schulte reminds everyone that the club's motto is, stay out of it, don't cause trouble, and stay out of sight. She enthusiastically encourages all the members to support Verret. The girls cheer. The ogre turns around at the noise, bewildered. The hero continues to move, trying to figure out if anyone is nearby besides his girls. Alice notes that she does not feel any murderous intent. A good morning is called. The ogre is surprised. He notices a girl sitting in the shade of an ivy-covered arch. She smiles welcomingly. It is President Milfanti. The ogre is not happy about this meeting at all. He is tense. The president kindly invites him to chat as there is still some time before classes. The hero is unhappy, does not understand what is happening. The president has helped him before, so he agrees to talk. He sits down at the table opposite the girl. Ogre asks Alice to escort Mashiro and Karen to the classroom. Alice does as she is told. The other girls bid Ogre farewell. Ogre and Milfanti are sitting at a table. Ogre is still tense. He asks what the president wanted from him. The girl, on the contrary, behaves very nicely, even flirting. She invites Ogre to join the student council, while stroking his legs with her feet under the table. The ogre sighs in exasperation and asks if Milfanti is going to stop inviting him. This is not the first time. The president replies that he will try to persuade him until he joins the council. The ogre is very displeased. Behind the sweet smile, he sees that the girl is looking at him as if he were prey. Verret thinks that things are getting serious. Milfanti notices the tension and suggests that Ogre relax and drink some black tea. The girl pushes a small hot cup towards him. Ogre looks at the cup with apprehension, wondering if Milfanti has mixed something into it. He tries the tea and is amazed by the incredible taste. He looks at the cup in surprise. Verret family is also known for their exceptional tea-making skills, but the president's brewing method is, in the hero's opinion, perfect. Milfanti notices that her tea has made a positive impression and promises Ogre that if he joins the council, she will brew tea for him every day. Verret refuses categorically. He almost gets caught and reminds himself not to show his weaknesses. The president continues to persuade Ogre. She points out that in the student council he will have more time to communicate with Lady Rebecca, since now there are only 2 of them in the organization. The Ogre is very surprised by this fact. Milfanti explains to him that the members of the student council are appointed by her teacher, and now there are only 2 of them, so they have a lot of work every day. The girl touches the documents spread out on the table. The Ogre turns his attention to the papers. Lists, tables, and graphs are laid out in disarray on the table. The hero asks Milfanti if she also does the job of a dean. The girl answers in the affirmative. Verret says this shouldn't be part of the student's work. The president replies that the teacher is very busy. The girl agrees to do her job. She humbly lowers her eyes and raises her cup of tea. The hero looks at the president in surprise. He feels something in his chest constricting. It hurts. Ogre's thoughts are filled with images of the past. His colleague complains about the lack of time, and he offers to help them with their work. Then the other workers also dump all the remaining tasks on him, and he remains alone in the office. The Ogre from the past sits at the computer and thinks that he hasn't been getting enough sleep lately. But if he does the work for others, everything will be fine because all his colleagues are very busy. He accidentally overhears his colleagues talking. The 2 men laugh and discuss how the hero would do anything for them. They agree to go out for a drink as they now have plenty of free time. Ogre's thoughts return to the present. He is struck by the realization that Milfanti is just like him in the past. He is confused and scared because of the memories of the unpleasant experience. His hands are clenched into fists. His gaze is directed at the floor. Sweat is pouring down his face. Now the hero can say with confidence that the job sucks. He looks up at the president and thinks that maybe she's inviting him to the student council precisely because they have few people. He notices bags under her eyes. Verret jumps up from the table in confusion. He says goodbye in a crumpled voice and leaves, leaving the president at the table with papers. Milfanti takes out a pocket mirror and wipes away the fake bags under her eyes with a handkerchief. She is very pleased that Verret could not hide his emotions. She notes with satisfaction that, in fact, the Ogre is very kind. The president is delighted that the hero has such cute qualities and can't believe that he took pity on her because of her fake bags under her eyes. The president gives a short laugh. All this time, Satya and her club were watching the conversation. The head of the fan club asks if the participants heard everything. The girls answer her affirmatively through a special transmitter in the earring. All the club members are sitting at different tables in the academy courtyard wearing dark glasses. Satya enthusiastically says that Verret was beautiful while he was drinking tea. The club members support her. Satya, flushed and dreamy, says she overheard the conversation between the president and Ogre. He was invited to the student council. The girl begins to fantasize about how Ogre stops her in the academy corridor because of an incorrectly tied ribbon on her uniform and orders the girl to come to him to write an explanatory note. Sadia's nose starts bleeding from excitement, and she almost loses consciousness. The ogre returns to class, where he is met by Karen and Mishiro. Karen and Mishiro sit at a desk. Karen asks what the president wanted from Ogre. Alice and Mishiro watch Verret closely. He sits at a desk answering that the president invited him to the student council again. Ogre asks Karen if there really is that much to do in a student council. The girl, smiling awkwardly, replies that yes, because there are only two of them in the student council. Karen recalls how busy the president usually is. She wonders if Milfanti ever sleeps. The little Rebbe excitedly asks the hero if he wants to join the council. She is very happy, because in this case they will be able to spend almost the entire school day together. Mishiro butts into the conversation and shouts that she will also join the council, since it will allow her to spend time with Ogre. Moreover, the president has already invited her. The ogre looks at both of them indignantly, thinking that perhaps this was another trick of the president. He looks at the girls who are trying to persuade him to join the student council together. They are both blushing and looking at the hero with pleading eyes. The ogre realizes that he has no choice but to join the council. Verret raises his hands and tells Karen and Mishiro that he is not going to become a permanent member of the student council. The girls cry out in disappointment, tears in their eyes. He remembers the president's tired eyes and decides that he will never join the student council, since they make him work so hard there, even if the temptation is great. The ogre walks down the hallway. Karen, Mishiro, and Alice follow behind him, sighing. Suddenly, someone addresses Verret. The dean appears in the hallway. The other students look at her with admiration. She smiles and greets Ogre. The woman asks the hero to give her a little time. The ogre is puzzled. He asks the dean if she taught the student council president how to ambush him. The dean invites Verret into an empty classroom to talk. Karen is about to leave, leaving Ogre and the dean behind. But he stops the girls, saying that they can stay. He doesn't want to be alone with his mentor. The dean asks if Reina's offer is still valid and joins her request. The mentor thinks she should take a step towards her. The ogre asks why the dean wants him on the student council. She replies that she thinks highly of his skills. The hero remarks that he doesn't see much point in joining. The dean agrees with him and promises to reward him for joining the council. The woman smiles brightly and adds that it will be a reward worthy of the heir of the Verret family. The hero gets angry and thinks how much the dean annoys him, calling her an old hag in his mind. He again remembers the past from another world in which the boss also promised him a raise. An image of a tired Reina appears in his mind. He is silent. The dean asks what is wrong. The ogre suggests that the dean give Reina a little more freedom. The woman is surprised. Karen and Mishiro react to these words in the same way. The hero thinks again that in his past life he was the same as Reina. He looks intently at the surprised woman and says that the president looks like a lifeless puppet. There is a brief pause, after which the dean explodes in rage. She screams and asks what the ogre just said. He smirks and asks if he ever offended the dean with his words. The woman breathes heavily and tells the students to get ready for the next lesson, dismissing them from the room. The heroes leave in silence. Right outside the office door, the girls pounce on Verret. Karen, with her eyes wide open, exclaims that she had also been thinking about scolding the dean for a long time, just like Ogre did. Mishiro, with her eyes closed, adds that the dean was very angry. Both girls look at the hero with delight and a sparkle in their eyes. Karen can't believe that Verret told the dean everything so directly. Mishiro thinks it's amazing. The ogre calmly replies that he did nothing special and turns his back on the girls. Alice says that her master could not have acted differently. A moment later, the hero's expression changes. He is scared. Ogre recalls feeling the dean's deadly power when she was angry, causing him to grin and wonder if the president has to endure this all the time. Meanwhile, the dean remains in the empty office. After Ogre leaves, she slams her fist on the table in anger. She suspects that Ogre did not accidentally use the word puppet in relation to Reina and guessed about their relationship. The dean wonders how far the ogre has gone in his investigation. She reassures herself that if the plan is carried out, nothing will stand in her way. Ogre, Karen, Alice, and Mishiro continue to move through the academy. Ogre thinks. From what he learned today, Reina Milfanti is too engrossed in her work. In the hero's opinion, she is a genius in magic, so he considers it a waste to use her in this way. Ogre suggests that Mishiro join the student council after all. The girl is very surprised. Verret decides to join the council in order to get Reina out of there and make her his pawn. He imagines himself as a puppeteer holding a small figure of the president in his hands, thinking that he will be above it and not it above him. Mishiro agrees to join the student council. He and Karen rejoice. Ogre asks Alice to take the girls to the dorm and leaves. Once the decision to join the council has been made, there is only one thing left for him to do. He goes to Reina and knocks on the door. Reina didn't expect to see him in her room. Verret approaches the girl and invites her to stay in his room that evening. Reina's eyes widen in confusion and she doesn't answer. Reina asks, confused, if she heard Verret invite her into his room. Ogre raises his hand and apologizes for getting ahead of himself. He explains that he and Mishiro want to join the student council. Reina is even more surprised. She does not understand why Verret agreed, because he refused so many times before. She thinks that the hero felt sorry for her. She remembers how badly the dean treated her and hopes that now it will stop. Reina is happy about this. She thanks Verret. The ogre asks again if Reina can spend the night in his room. The president is embarrassed and indignantly yells at the hero, asking what he is talking about. He moves closer to Reina and places his hands on the table behind her, preventing her from moving or running away. The ogre says he wants her and is used to getting what he wants. He repeats his question. Reina blushes to her ears, her head is spinning, she cannot answer anything and only mumbles and sighs in confusion. The ogre looks straight at her, but Reina lowers her eyes to the floor. Stuttering, she agrees to come to Verret's room that evening. The ogre grins and says he will wait for her. He leaves, the large doors closing with a bang. Reina can't stand on her feet and leans on the table. She's swaying. She covers her mouth with her hands in shock, not understanding what everything that happened means. Milfanti remembers Alice, Karen, and Mishiro, and thinks that Verret is only attracted to curvy girls. Her palms slowly descend to her chest. Reina wonders if the boy might have had enough and become interested in her figure now. The president clenches his fist in determination. This is not the time to speculate on Verret's inclinations, although she knows she only agreed to come out of confusion. Remembering his words, she blushes even more and covers her lips with her hand again. She doesn't understand if he meant something intimate. With a determined step, Reina heads out of the classroom, thinking that she has no right to feel sorry for herself if she needs to get Verret. The ogre walks slowly down the corridor, thinking that he has already dealt with the invitation. But he still has one more thing to do. The hero remembers one of the lunch breaks a few days ago. He, Alice, Karen, and Mishiro are on a picnic. Mishiro congratulates Karen on her release and suggests celebrating. Alice agrees and happily says that Karen has finally become Verret's fiancée again. Mishiro gets angry at this remark. Karen is at a loss for words. Karen grabs Mishiro's hands and exclaims that she would like to get to know Ms. Rice better. Mishiro blushes in embarrassment. With shining eyes, she promises to show Karen a friendly tradition of commoners that will surely please the aristocrats. The memory is interrupted. Verret reaches his chambers. He is met by Alice. The hero thinks that what Mishiro came up with will definitely help Rina get involved. Reina walks down the hallway alone. She stops at the door to Verret's room and sighs. Reina is wearing a pajama set with short shorts. She is embarrassed and wonders if her clothes are too daring. She is overcome with doubts. However, Milfanti decides that if Verret can accept her, then perhaps he can save her from the dean, whom the girl calls a monster in her thoughts. Rina turns and walks away from the door, thinking she'd better go back. Suddenly, she hears a loud groan and exclamation from behind the door. Reina turns around sharply, not believing what she just heard. Rina approaches the door and begins to eavesdrop. Someone asks her not to stop. Reina blushes and begins to imagine the indecent scenes that she imagines are happening behind the door. She hears Alice's voice asking her to join everyone, and Verret's voice allowing her to do so. Reina backs away from the door in shock and confusion. Rihanna decides that as student council president, she cannot allow what is happening in Verret's room. She storms inside. The firecrackers explode. Confetti flies up and rains down on Reina's head. Verret and Karen are sitting on the couch. There is a table with drinks in front of them. Alice and Mishiro are standing closer to Reina and greet her with firecrackers. Verret apologizes for the noise, which can be heard even in the hallway. He explains that the girls were too engrossed in the firecrackers he designed. Rina finally realizes that this is just a simple slumber party. Verret says it's a great way to get to know each other better. Milfanti remembers Verret inviting her to spend the night in his room and realizes he meant a slumber party. She falls to her knees, blushing to her ears. Mishiro gives Reina his hand and helps her up. Reina thinks that everything in this room is surprisingly decent. Mishiro and Reina look at each other in silence in their pajamas. Mishiro tightly squeezes the president's hands and thanks her for inviting a commoner to the student council. Mishiro is glad that Reina came to them. The girl smiles happily and invites the president to have some fun together. Reina blushes again and sweetly accepts the invitation, adding that sometimes you need to relax. The girls discuss the gifts from Verret. Reina asks if Karen's hairpin was given to her by the ogre. Karen answers in the affirmative. Mishiro proudly takes out a handkerchief with the Verret family crest and shows it to everyone, as it is also a gift from the hero. Karen is delighted because Mishiro is holding Ogre's favorite handkerchief. The girl didn't know about it, so she is even more touched and looks at Verret lovingly. Karen turns to Alice and remembers that the maid's uniform was also a special gift. Alice happily presses her hand to her chest and says that the uniform was specially made this color so the traces of blood would not be visible. The latter shocks Karen. Reina laughs, covering her mouth with her hand, and remarks that Alice is a very interesting person. Karen replies that the president says that about everyone. The girls laugh. The ogre sits on the couch and watches the girls. In his opinion, everything is going perfectly smoothly. The young man thinks that once President Malfanti gets to know everyone, she will naturally open up to him too. While all the girls are sitting at the table, Mishiro suddenly attracts attention. She asks what they will all do in a student council. Reina puts a glass of drink on the table and says that she will explain everything, In fact, she wanted to invite Verret and Rice to the student council because the Tournament of Magic Academies is coming up. The Magic Academy Tournament is the largest combat magic tournament in the country. 9 magic academies from the Embarred Kingdom participate in this competition. Participants are members of the student councils in groups of 3. The ogre looks at the president and asks if this is the tournament that Richburg lost last year, even though he had won every year before. He asks if the president participated in this tournament last year. Reina says yes. Karen intervenes in the conversation and says that the Rebetsenka family is responsible for military affairs, which is why she watches the tournaments. According to the girl, the president performed well at last year's competition. Karen recalls how Reina, as a rookie, fought alone against 3 opponents and almost won, although 2 of her comrades did not survive. Reina closes her eyes and says that in the end they still lost. The president adds that they still couldn't find anyone strong enough to participate in the current tournament until Verret and Mishiro showed up. Melfati says that Mishiro will have no equal in a duel with ordinary students, as she is a master of dual casting. Mishiro has 2 types of elemental magic, wind and ice. Verret in turn uses cunning tactics that help him confuse his opponent. This is how he defeated Prince Arnia. Verret finally understands what Reina was trying to achieve when she invited him to the student council. Reina asks if Ogre and Mishiro will fight with her. Karen and Alice watch the conversation closely. Ogre and Mishiro look at the president with determination and excitement. Verret says that Reina should have told him about the tournament from the beginning. Mishiro agrees and adds that he wants to test his strength. Reina is surprised. Verret thinks that at the tournament he will be able to show everyone how great he is. The magicians fill out the magic tournament participant form, entering 3 names. Reina confirms that the 3 of them will participate in the tournament. Verret asks Alice to bring more blankets. Reina looks at the other girls with affection. The ogre turns to Reina and asks if she wants to sleep. The president asks if everything is okay. Verret nods and asks the girl to call him by his first name from now on. He adds that he will call Milfati Reina himself. The ogre invites Reina to sit on the sofa and asks if she is tired. The heroes sit next to each other. Reina notes that Ogre looks a little embarrassed and giggles. The girl lays her head on his shoulder, stretching out his name. Verret glances sideways at Reina. The ogre is tense, his hands clenched into fists. Reina places her hand on his knee. Milfati thinks that she should not lose concentration. She tells Verret that he is a very kind person because he saved Karen, Mishiro, and the orphanage. The girl moves away from the hero a little and admits to him that the circles under her eyes that he saw on another day were fake. For this, she wants to ask for forgiveness. The ogre doesn't quite understand what Reina means when she says she wanted to take advantage of his kindness. Reina wonders if Ogre will be able to accept her secret. She asks him to look and slowly unbuttons her shirt. Verret is very surprised, his eyes widen. Beads of sweat run down his face. He decides that if Reina wants to show herself to him, he will agree to look and says out loud that he agrees for her to show him what she wanted. They are both very nervous. Reina blushes but continues to unbutton her shirt. A sudden gust of wind violently sways the heavy curtain. The curtain touches a vase of flowers. It falls to the floor. A loud noise is heard. Karen and Mishiro wake up with a scream. Mishiro sees a broken vase. Reina and Ogre quickly turn away from each other and move to opposite ends of the sofa. Ogre apologizes for the noise. Mishiro asks him not to worry and promises to clean everything up. Reina also apologizes to Mishiro. Verret is very upset that he did not see anything. He puts his head on the armrest of the sofa and closes his eyes. While Mashiro and Elise clean up the debris, Reina tells Verret that her clothes are wet and asks where the restroom is. The ogre tells him that the bathroom is next to Alice's room. After Reina leaves, the hero stares after her and wonders if she is really capable of taking off her clothes in front of another and why she calls it a secret. Reina stands in the bathroom in front of the mirror, leaning on the vanity. The heroine thinks that she came to her senses in time. She is still not sure that the ogre will be able to accept her, despite his kindness. Reina remembers the past. Burning houses, noise. Little Reina runs along the road calling her parents. She falls to the ground, hitting herself hard. A tall woman in black approaches her. The woman orders Reina to follow her. Reina finds herself in a room where there are many other children, all of whom are crying in pain. The dark figure of a woman grabs Reina's hand and leads her somewhere, expressing hope that at least Reina will be useful. Little Reina realizes that she has to pretend that she doesn't feel pain and doesn't see what's happening around her. Adult Reina thinks that at that moment she lost both her body and her soul. The memories are cut off. Reina looks in the mirror and takes off her pajama top. She thinks that even running away from the monster Dean won't save her. Reina looks at her reflection. A device has been implanted in her body. The girl calls herself ugly. Her face contorts with pain as she decides to continue with the plan. Reina comes out of the bathroom and sees that Karen and Mashiro are already asleep again. Alice covers them with a blanket. The ogre is standing next to the bed. Verret approaches her and asks if everything is okay. He adds that they have a change of clothes, but suddenly notices that something is wrong with Reina. Reina uses her fingers to lift the corners of Verret's lips into a smile. He doesn't understand why she did that. The ogre is a little annoyed. Reina quickly says goodbye and leaves, saying that she has other things to do. The ogre is confused and can't say anything. Reina asks him to remember something. At the door, she turns to him and says that the most important thing is a smile. But there is no longer the same joy in the girl's eyes, and she smiles faintly. The ogre watches her go and doesn't understand what's going on. The heroes arrive in the kingdom of Rambad. Tournaments between magic academies are held here. Rambad is a tropical state located 3 days by sea from Inbard. Ogre, Alice, Mashiro, and Reina step onto the shore. They are surrounded by palm trees. Mashiro is very happy that they have finally arrived. Verret reminds them that they are here thanks to the magical ship of the Rebecca family. The hero thanks Karen for her help. She also arrived with everyone else and appears on the shore in a long beach dress and hat. Karen remembers how unhappy her father was, but believes that nothing terrible happened because the ship was needed to support the ogre. All 4 girls in bathing suits happily call Ogre to the beach. The hero looks at the girls' costumes and thinks he has gone to heaven. He compliments all 4 of them and invites the heroines to splash in the sea. Karen, Reina, Alice, and Mashiro happily agree. Verret watches the girls play in the water. Mashiro is glad that the water is cool. Reina enters the water wearing a long t-shirt. Ogre thinks Reina is teasing him, because after the night of the slumber party, when she almost took her clothes off in front of him, there was nothing between them. He is determined to make her his after the tournament. The girls play ball. The ogre thinks that mere physical strength will not be enough to impress the magic master Reina anymore. He decides that he will have to use Delith. Reina emerges from the water and approaches Ogre, asking if he wants to swim too. Verret replies that he's been thinking about it for a while. At this point, Mishiro passes out due to the heat. The heroes lay her down in the shade. Ice mages are often vulnerable to heat. Reina offers Mishiro and everyone else some Rambada-style iced tea that she brought. The heroes enjoy the tea, noting the unusual aroma. The ogre adds that something like this could be expected from the president. Reina is glad that everyone liked the tea. The president explains that the secret to making this tea is to crush the leaves by hand. Verret asks how she knows such subtleties. Reina looks at the heroes and admits that the kingdom of Rambod is her home country. Everyone is surprised by this. Karen exclaims that she didn't know. The ogre wonders in his mind why, in that case, Reina doesn't live in Rambod and why she took the surname Mayfonti. The hero pulls himself up, since now is not the best time to ask about this. Thanks to the tea, Mishiro feels better. She is full of energy again and ready to begin her heat acclimation training. Rina tries to convince her to rest a little longer. Mishiro replies that she will definitely succeed since the president has such high hopes for her. Reina looks at her in surprise. The girls head towards the sea again with Ogre. Reina thanks Mishiro from behind. Milfanti's gaze becomes sad again. She purses her lips and lowers her eyes. The heroes decide to play beach volleyball. Ogre, Karen, and Mishiro against Alice and Reina. Karen asks if it's okay that the game will be 3-on-2. Ogre replies that the opposing team has a real monster, meaning Alice. Verret puts the ball into play. He says that winning doesn't matter as the match is just a light training session to get the girls used to the local climate. Reina serves to Alice. Alice attacks with all her might. The ball lands on the Ogre team's side. The score is 1-0. Reina is happy. Alice is very aggressive. Verret is surprised. He panics because Alice does not even try to weaken the blow. The hero asks the girls to step back because he understands that only he himself can resist Alice and his team. Alice and the ogre shout at each other. The girl promises to give it her all, and the hero accepts her challenge. Someone suddenly calls Ogre. He barely takes the ball from Alice from below. The ball bounces off his forearms and flies away, hitting the head of a man who just appeared. The blow was so strong that the man fell onto the sand. All the heroes turn to look at him. The ogre recognizes the guy in the shirt as Alaban. The girls try to figure out who he is. Alice explains that Alaban is Ogre's subordinate. Alaban rises from the ground laughing and rubbing the back of his head. He tells that he's been carrying out Ogre's orders, wandering around the world, and asks for praise. Verret refuses. He asks why Alaban ended up at a resort and not working in some bad area now. Alaban replies that there is a suspicion that something serious is happening in Rambod, and he ended up here tracking the traffic of a certain extract. Alaban asks Ogre to be careful, as he says someone is up to no good. Reina immediately thinks of the dean, but remains silent. The day before the start of the tournament, participants from different countries began to flock to the Rambada Hotel. Ogre suffered an injury unrelated to the tournament, which made him very angry. He had to bandage his hands after playing volleyball with Alice. Alice apologizes and helps him with his wounds. The heroes recall the game. Alice scolds herself for her lack of restraint. The ogre asks her not to apologize, adding that everything is fine. Verret thanks Alice for showing him his weaknesses and adds that it is very timely since the tournament is tomorrow. The ogre thinks that a strong body alone will not be enough to win, although it is unlikely that someone like Alice will participate in the tournament. The hero decides that he needs to think of strategies to protect himself from magic. Mishiro brings Karen to Alice and Ogre. Karen specializes in healing magic. The girl says that she is no match for the president, but since Dean Florn has now called Reina to her office, she will be able to take care of Verret's hand. Karen casts a healing spell. A seal with a 5-pointed star covers Verret's hand. The arm heals instantly. The ogre removes the bandage. He enthusiastically thanks Karen for the treatment. Karen puts her hand on Mashiro's shoulder and says that she is the one to thank. The girls remember how they tried to get to Ogre. The nurses in the reception area did not want to let strangers in, but Mashiro persuaded them to at least let Karen in so that she could help their friend. Upon learning that competition participant Mashiro Rice had come to see them, the nurses began to mock her, calling her a commoner. One of the sisters called Ogre the loser of the Verret family. Karen was furious. She was about to protest, but Mashiro stopped her with a wave of her hand. She looked calmly at the nurses and said that they could make fun of her as much as they wanted, but she would not allow them to make fun of Ogre. Then Rice grabbed Karen's hand and ran towards Ogre despite the workers' orders and shouts. Verret about the situation with admiration, saying that Mashiro was really cool. Mashiro is embarrassed. The ogre looks at Mashiro with affection and thinks that she has changed a lot. Previously, she was afraid of aristocrats, but now she has become very strong. Verret thanks both girls and rises to his feet. Since there are still those who doubt their strength, he suggests that Mashiro give it her all. The girl resolutely agrees. Meanwhile, Reina talks to the dean. The dean says that Reina pleasantly surprised her, although the woman had already lost hope for her. Now Rice and Verret are on the student council team. Reina closes her eyes and humbly thanks the dean for the praise. The dean frowns in annoyance and pulls Reina up short, saying that this is not praise and that the girl should be able to handle such tasks. The dean plans to possess Mashiro in order to use her talent as a mage. The woman asks if Reina knows what she needs to do. Reina is silent. There is confusion and fear on her face. The dean's gaze turns vicious. She smirks and asks if Reina has become attached to Mashiro. Reina is panicking. Sweat is pouring down her face. Her eyes are wide open. She barely manages to utter a few words. The girl is horrified. The dean reminds her that if she betrays her, she will make Reina go through something terrible. The woman promises to use all her strength and wisdom to make Reina regret it. Reina feels like she is surrounded by darkness, in which she hears the dean's voice. The woman lets her go, making sure the girl understands everything. Reina walks out the door and immediately doubles over. She's coughing and crying. She can't breathe. Her legs are shaking. Reina tells herself not to cry and reminds herself to smile in any situation. The president returns to the other heroes. The ogre announces that the draw is almost underway. Reina's face is tense, but after a second, a bright, wide smile appears on it, and she continues to follow the others. The heroes are sitting at a table in the large dining hall. The ogre asks Reina why the dean called her. Mashiro can't help but stare at the delicious food in the buffet. Verret asks Reina if she has eaten yet. Renea replies that she hasn't. The president refuses to eat, but the hero scolds her, saying that she can't do anything on an empty stomach. Reina agrees to eat a little. The heroes are sitting peacefully at the table when suddenly someone's voice is heard. Shelba Ansem, a third-year student at Mission Academy, appears before them. The ogre wonders where the noisy, bespectacled man came from. Shelba approaches Verret's table and pays respect to Reina, who returned to the tournament despite everything. The ogre is annoyed. He hopes that Reina will be able to send the annoying chatterbox away. Renana turns away silently. Verret realizes that she doesn't like Shelba either. Ansem is shocked by their reaction. Shelba continues to pester the heroes, asking how Reina could just show up to the tournament after losing last year. He puts his hand to his forehead in mockery and asks how Dean Florine could have chosen such a student. Reina remains dejectedly silent. The ogre, not paying much attention to Shelba's chatter, asks the president who this clown is. Milfody tells him that Ansem wanted to become the dean's apprentice, but was rejected. Reina looks at Shelba with sympathy, Ogre with contempt, calling him offended. Shelba is instantly irritated. He raises his voice and starts attacking the heroes, saying that they wouldn't be so arrogant if they saw his abilities. Reina thinks that he is as annoying as before and that she can't stand him. Shelba finally notices Ogre and says that he knows him. He calls the hero a loser from the famous Verret family. Shelba turns to Reina again and asks what she was thinking when she invited a mediocrity like Ogre to the tournament. Reina looks up at him sullenly but remains silent. Suddenly the voice of the draw presenter is heard. He appears on stage and invites the team representatives. Reina leaves Mashiro and Verret at the table and heads towards the stage. Representatives from all 9 schools gather for the draw. The host asks them to take tickets with random numbers. The results of the draw are announced from the stage. The first match will be between the teams of Missen Academy and Richburg. Reina returns to her team and laments her bad luck. The ogre laughs. Shelba runs up to them again with a pathetic laugh. He promises to defeat Reina this time too. Reina smiles softly and says that the first match promises to be interesting. Shelba's face turns displeased. He accuses Reina of pretending to be polite while actually looking down on everyone. Shelba doesn't give her a chance to answer and bursts out laughing loudly, adding that her arrogance is out of place this time, since she brought someone like Ogre to the tournament with her. Shelba points her finger at Verret. Suddenly, lightning crackles. Both boys turn to Reina in shock. Reina gets very angry. She says that Shelba's chatter can go on forever if you keep quiet and listen to him. She calls him intrusive. Shelba and Ogre are scared. Shelba runs away in panic, but promises that he will not let the situation go. He shouts at Reina to prepare for defeat in the match tomorrow. There is a pause, then Ogre's loud laughter is heard. The hero looks at Reina with a smile and says that she still knows how to show her emotions. Ogre thanks Reina for getting angry because of him. Milfody looks at him in surprise and blushes. She herself did not understand what had actually happened. In a moment, she realizes that somehow Verret has become an important part of her life. The ogre puts the overfed Mashiro on his back, and they prepare to leave together. He tells Reina that he wants her more and more. Reina is again very confused and tries to figure out what the young man means. The ogre grins and lowers his head. He says he wants Reina to be their friend. The heroes continue to leave the buffet. Ogre promises to surprise Reina with his abilities at tomorrow's tournament. The day of the match arrives. The huge coliseum is full of people. Noise and shouts. Among the spectators are not only Alice and Karen, but also many girls from the Ogre fan club. They raise supportive posters with hearts. The host announces the start of the tournament and introduces the teams one by one. The team with the most powerful combination of lightning and fire appears first in the arena. Verret's team also moves towards the arena entrance. Ogre encourages Reina and Mashiro. Missen's team appears in the arena, led by Shelba. Richburg Academy team, adding that they are former champions but the potential of the current squad is unknown.